Synth Network.
Good evening, everyone. It is another Friday. It's Friday the 30th of April. Where is the year going? It's just gone 7 p.m. here in the UK. It's just gone 2 on the East Coast and 11 a.m. on the West. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you might be. I hope you are all well. And as ever, we are joined. I am joined by my co-hosts Ben and Cryss. And this week we are beyond delighted to welcome a man who says we see his face far too much, but we completely disagree. We'd have him on every week if we could. Mr. Ty Unwin. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. How are you all?
Great.
Very well.
Great. You always wait for somebody to go first, don't you? And it's like,
that's it. Well, let's do the polite thing. We go to our guest Ty. That's an interesting moniker you've got down in your lower third there. We do. I just want to say we let our guests do that themselves.
You've not done that.
No, you don't.
I thought you'd done it.
No, you don't. I logged in, and that's just how it was.
That's what we bookmarked you as fat and bald bloke. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah. No, things are good.
Keeping busy?
Yes, still rebuilding the studios, so that's taken up quite a lot of time, and also, I mean, hilariously, this week I kind of accidentally got a Eurorack system.
Oh.
Well, no, bearing in mind that, I mean, anyone that cares or knows or whatever knows my opinion on Eurorack, which is, it's the work of the devil and should be drowned at birth. But what I've accidentally done is, over the years, just bought an odd module here or there. You know, you occasionally see one that really sticks out as being special. And so I've just randomly bought some odd modules, and then I bought a few years ago a KB37, and I'm thinking if I'm going to have anything, it's got to be a self-contained unit that's, you know. So I bought that, and that was it. And they all these little boxes just mounted up. And then at the beginning of the week, when I was sorting out the studio, I came across these boxes and just thought, I suppose I should actually just, you know, assemble some of these. And already, before I've even realised I've got any of the utility modules, the actual things that make it usable and workable, I had more than 300, is it HP?
Yeah.
H whatever. So that's how many modules I'd had that I'd accidentally bought over the years without anything resembling, I now know the terminology, attenuator and, you know, kind of multiplier and all these kind of things. I had none of those. I just had all the fancy modules. So I've accidentally...
Well, it sounds like you're doing things correctly then.
Well, yeah, except I've not plugged any of them in. So literally this week I've just plugged them all together going, oh, so that's what it... So I've accidentally got a small Eurorack system. And it's going to stay small because anyone that knows me knows my... personality means that there's a kind of, you know, I'll end up being like Martin Gore and then some if I let it go. So I'm not going to do that. So it's staying small. Although I do have to buy another rack to go with the two.
Starting already.
No.
I've got two words for you, Ty. 2 words. Man down.
Look, can I just point out? I'm not going down. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. It's not happening. Yeah. It's not. It's not. It's not. So. But other than that, no, that's what I've been doing a lot of this week, and so all good. All good.
Ben Simpson.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm really good, thanks. Yeah. Really
been busy?
Good. Just the same, you know. I'm still working my way through the live set. And And I realised that I've got to stop doing the songs that I like, because I'm going to end up with a huge pile of songs that I don't like at the end, which is going to be a nightmare. So I'm just picking them at random now. But
all right.
Next on my list, I've just finished one. The next on my list is Relax. So that's going to be that's going to be a task and a half trying to replicate that. So I'm in for some fun. I'll probably still be doing that like another 10 episodes into the future.
Well, I managed to obtain, and I shan't say how or where, but I managed to obtain a multi-track of Slave to the Rhythm this week, which if you look in the right places, you can find it. And anybody that knows me knows that for me is the finest pop production in the world ever. And obviously it's related because obviously it's Trevor Horn. And listening to that in stems, just listening to the isolated vocals, the isolated drums, that loop that Lipson did. Oh man! And you think, I thought I knew this. I know nothing. That was the whole thing is incredible.
But how? Because I imagine there was quite a lot of Fairlight on that.
That was Synclavier. That was.
Oh, is it Synclavier? Okay.
It was almost all Synclavier and the Sony digital multi-tracks that just came out, and that's how they created that drum loop. They got the go-go drummers in, and then they synchronized them so they could just go backwards and forwards and just be a continuous loop of drums.
The only reason I say is years ago, and I can't. Again, it's the same as you not being able to say how you got the multi-track. I can't tell you what the track is for legal reasons. But years ago, to try and get a new version of a song without the publishers of the original getting all the money, I had to recreate a track that was a big 80s hit, and they wanted it recreated as close as possible to the original. And to do this, they gave me the multi-track of the original song, and I then had to literally, as close as possible, match the multi-track note for note. But the original multi-track, basically the original track was all done. It was, I think the bass line was on an Imposca, but the rest of it was all Fairlight. And what I suddenly realised is that basically, if you just listen to this, it was a mid 80s song, all done on Fairlight, without the effects. It sounded absolutely awful. I mean, like shockingly bad.
It is gash.
When you literally just put the faders up, you're like, oh my God, this how on earth? It was dreadful. And you suddenly realise that the thing that made it all, it was all the effects and the EQ and the compression, and it was everything that wasn't coming out of the Fairlight.
Without saying who it was, would I be close in using this phrase, maroon container? Is that it?
Possibly.
Yeah. Okay. We shan't say any more than that.
I love a bit of maroon container. Don't be saying that.
Maroon container. Anyway, let's move on before we get mired in legal stuff. Cryss, in a very hot and sunny California, everything good with you, my friend?
Yeah, going well. My last 25 hours or so would describe as in a small town, big battle wages in a single person studio. Somebody put in the subtitles. Dramatic Unwin-esque music plays. Oh, brilliant! And so I got my vaccine shot, which was great. Glad to have that done. And I almost, and very similarly, went down a very dark path. Fortunately, my hand has been stayed as far as Eurorack. I've contained it. It is possible, but I got my wife's iPad out the other day because I really wanted to try that ID700 synthesizer that's only available for iOS. So. Yes. I got that out and played with it and started, looking up, there's a new iPad Pro coming out and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, wait, hold on, stop.
Yes, it's that season again, isn't it? Apple, and we spoke last week about the M1 iMac and the iPad Pro. This week we're going to mention the M2 as it's being billed, or M1X I've heard some people refer to it as, but we'll speak about that later. We've got lots of new things to talk about, and obviously we've got Ty here to give us his unfiltered opinion, which is what we get him for. It's what he's paid for. So why don't we start off with something that we were going to do last week? We kind of ran out of time. And excuse me, so I'm going to make an excuse here. I just need to sort out. This is the Mac world that we live in. I had a new SSD fitted to this system at the beginning of the week, and it's absolutely brilliant. It's like night and day, this thing. It's like I bought a brand new computer. But unfortunately, I'm still discovering that when you migrate everything over, certain preferences don't come over, so you have to reauthorize things. I just went to share my screen and it said, you need to give permission because Macs are Macs. Anyway, hopefully this will now work. So we were going to talk about this last week, and I'm kind of glad we didn't because Ty, I believe you are a big user of this stuff, Spitfire audio sample libraries. They play a huge part in your work, as you've told me in the past. And they've now released Spitfire Symphony Orchestra Professional, recorded at AAS Studios, and it's split into the different sections of the orchestra. So you have strings, woodwinds, brass, and other elements too. Of course, you can buy the entire library, which I believe, if you stump up the extra cash, you can get on an SSD drive as well. Different versions. There's a chamber strings edition. There's a complete and the complete orchestra. Lots of variations. We love Spitfire. We love BBC SO and the whole concept behind that. So let's go over to Mr. Ty Unwin and ask you your thoughts on this new package from Spitfire.
Well, the thing is, that's all it is, really. It's a new package. These libraries have been around for ages. The way that has been less publicised is by sticking the word professional, because there's always been the professional versions of these libraries available, but they've been just not as widely used, essentially, because obviously the pricing goes up. But all you essentially get from the professional side of things is you get another, I think it's 8 mic positions. So I think it's 8. So I think you end up with 11 in total. I could be wrong on that, but I think they're the numbers. But essentially, so these libraries have been around for a bit in their normal state. Then they came out with the professional with the extra mic positions, which again have been around for a good few years. But what they haven't been done is kind of bundled together with things like Massey, although you can get Massey if you bought certain things. So this really is a bundling together of lots of older libraries. But, and this is the big but, I think I know why they've done it. I think it's because East West dropped their Hollywood Opus edition last week. And so, again, what they've done with that is they've done some fettling and remastering of the old Hollywood samples, orchestral libraries, and then added, I think it's, did I read 130 gig or something? There's a new load of recording as well, and they've dropped Opus. And so I think what Spitfire why they've really done this is basically to try and get back some of the possible East-West customers. Sure. And I think that's the reason they're doing it. And don't be put off the fact that these are older libraries just repackaged as a bundle, because these are amazing libraries. And I don't want to sit here and curse our wonderful American cousins, but for me, they're a lot better than the East-West libraries. There's just something. The thing is about the Spitfire, they don't. This is my world. I mean, this is this because we've spoken about this before. But basically, when it comes to orchestral libraries, I basically kind of essentially have them all because I need them for work. Yeah. They all have a certain qualities and certain pitfalls. And the thing is about Spitfire, it hasn't got that incredibly clinical sound of like VSL, and it hasn't got that kind of real sheen that things like the East-West and the kind of more American sound has. It has a very natural kind of sound, and it's, for me, if I had to have a desert island, I could only use one company for their sample libraries, their orchestral sample libraries, it would be Spitfire all day long. And I've got all the others, but it would always be Spitfire, because there's something just there's just something very right about the combination of the samples, the articulations, and the hall, the general sound of it. you know.
Yeah. Because that's always the thing with Spitfire, isn't it? That the place that they record them is like another part of the package. It's it's what sells the package. You know, these being recorded at Air, or the ones that are done at Abbey Road, or the ones that were done with the SO, the BBC SO at Maida Vale. That's
for years this
a big
wasn't
part, isn't it?
Yeah, for years this was almost one of those things that in the early days, if we're doing sampling orchestral libraries, it was the thing that a lot of companies didn't really take into consideration. They didn't see it as important as the actual players and the sound and whatever. And it was almost VSL who did the opposite, and they went completely with their dry stage. Yeah. And so all of the early VSL libraries are incredibly dry, and you have to add reverb after the event, otherwise they're almost totally unusable. And then you had East West, who were doing completely the opposite. Who that was all about their spaces, but the problem they had was that the spaces were so specific that trying to add your own reverb, or it was difficult to take that reverb off, and so that made there was a lot of problems with release tails on the early East-West side of things. Now it's all been, it's a lot more choice and availability, and but I still, right now, I would always kind of go with Spitfire. And that, every time I say great things about Spitfire, everyone thinks that, kind of, oh yeah, I've got to deal with them and they give me all the libraries. It's not like that at all. As it is, yes, I do know them. But I do what everyone else does. I go out and I buy the libraries, and because they are essentially within the genre. For me, they're very much the absolute tip top.
Sure. So for us mere mortals who don't make a living from doing this stuff, and maybe we've already just invested in say the BBC SO package or the Abbey Road stuff, the Abbey Road 1 stuff. Do you kind of grade them? Do you say that maybe is one better than the other, or is it this is good for this kind of thing and this is good for that?
Yeah, it's a good question, and there's not an easy answer. I think that the way that I look at it is that you get certain composers who all they're bothered about is making it sound totally 100% authentic. If they have to do it in the box, all they're bothered about is it has to sound like a real orchestra, and that's never been the way that I work. For me, I just want the best sound possible, and if it doesn't quite sound like it's one particular real orchestra, that doesn't bother me in the slightest. It's all very simple for me. My life, my opinions on everything, as you well know, it's very black and white. Does it sound good or does it sound bad? If it sounds good, I don't care where those samples come from. That's all I'm bothered about. So, for example, in my main orchestral template, I'll have a legato strings from one of the Spitfire libraries, and then I'll have a kind of the basses, double basics, for example, from maybe Abbey Road. I'll have symphonic strings for the violins. The violas might be from performance samples. I might have I'll have different libraries doing different sections, and that's not because the other libraries are bad. It's just that I'm going for a particular sound, a particular timbre, and sometimes that means combining different elements from different libraries. And it's the same with, people bypass all the things like the Spitfire LCO libraries or their Albion libraries. Like Albion 5, for example, which is all very, very quiet, muted sounds. But texturally, they're amazing. And so... I don't use one library. I literally just use odds and sods from multitude of libraries. And if it doesn't sound like a real orchestra because of that, because obviously some are recorded at Abbey Road, some at Air, some recorded in different halls around the world, I don't care. It doesn't bother me at all. All I'm bothered about is, does it sound good? That's all I'm bothered about.
Which is how it should be, I guess.
Yeah, well, it seems obvious in my head, but for some people it's not quite as obvious as that.
Ben, Cryss, have you got any thoughts on this? I mean, I know that... Have we all got a version of BBC SO, haven't we?
Yeah.
Have you been tempted? Because I know when the Abbey Road stuff came out, I thought, well, I'm not Ty. I don't need a huge amount of this. I've got BBC SO. That ticks all my orchestral boxes and then some more. Would you be tempted by one of these, maybe one of the segments of these, or the complete package if you've got a spare £1,800 lying
That's
around?
what I was just going to ask. How much is the complete package? Because I was looking down at those. I couldn't actually see the full price anyway.
So
was looking down at the individual ones, and they were fairly hefty, you know.
So you've got the Symphony Orchestra Pro is 1,300. The Complete Pro, which is everything, 1,800. The Chamber Strings Edition is 1,300. Then for either the orchestra on its own is 900. Symphony Complete is 1,250. Chamber Strings standard is 900. But then you can break it down into just the symphonic strings or just the symphonic woodwinds, and they vary between like 330 and 600 depending on which one you go for. But these all sound very expensive. If you already own some of their products, you get discounts, and you can save yourself up to 50% depending on what you already have. So if you are interested, go into your account and see what the deal's going to be.
It's expensive, but it's an investment because it opens up a palette of professional sounds to you, doesn't it?
You've hit the nail on the head there, Ben, because for me, I always follow this thing where everyone knows that my past now about starting off with, can you get the violins going, kind of small violins, when I had no money and was very poor, blah, 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 blah. But even when I wasn't earning any money, basically, if I did earn it, I always started investing, exactly as you said, back into gear and into sample libraries. And when I realized I was getting frustrated working with real orchestras early on, which the other thing we need to always keep bearing in mind with this is that compare the prices of any of these with one 4-hour session with a real orchestra to work on something. These are an absolute bargain, because the prices you talk about for any kind of orchestral session makes these look like absolute this is peanuts. This is peanuts compared to one session with a real orchestra. So when it became obvious that I was getting frustrated working with real orchestras, and so the first thing I really bought was when VSL first came out, and I bought the Cube, which at the time was, if you remember, when you bought the whole VSL thing, was incredibly expensive. Something in my head is saying like £7,000, £8,000 or something like that, which at the time I didn't have. But I realized that this was going to be an investment. This was actually going to get me work. And the reality is, for someone in my position, any sound, any piece of gear, anything that's going to get me work or make me sound better or different or whatever to other people, that's why I would do it. I mean, I'll tell you for a fact that in years gone by, if you jump back 15 years, back in the days when I still had to pitch for things, is the fact that if I sent a pitch off, I knew for a fact that mine would be the best sounding pitch. It may not be musically the best pitch, and there may be lots of composers who are also pitching who musically were way above me and better than me, but as a sound, as a realistic production in terms of doing orchestral mock-ups, mine was going to be the best sounding one. And all that was down to, nothing to do with musicianship, all that was down to is I invested huge amounts of money in buying all the big libraries, kind of. That's the reason why, using one that rings true with you, something like a Fairlight as an analogy, is the fact that the reason that all of those things sounded so special back in the day was because before, when only certain people had access to a Fairlight, all of those tracks sounded amazing compared to everyone else that had a CS5 and a Pro 1. Do you know what I mean? And so that's what's made them sound impressive. Yeah. So for me, I've always invested. I always see that when you buy these big libraries, and they are expensive, but they are an investment. It's, they really are, because they allow you to do something that otherwise, realistically, you couldn't do to that level.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cryss, your thoughts on this new package? He's on mute.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Either that or you're whispering very quiet.
There we go.
There we go.
So I have the BBC Core, which was a great investment. And as far as figuring out how each of us will use it and what is necessary. So for me, I had some really basic orchestral stuff by a popular company, and I just never really felt like it was that great, but it was good enough for the time that I could do compositions and throw it in there and be okay. And I'm not talking about giant orchestral productions. I'm thinking, more along the lines of, I really what George Martin would do with the Beatles, like very small type things. Oh, here, let's put some cello or French horn stuff in here. And so that's kind of been more a mindset. But then when we started, looking at the Spitfire stuff here on the show, that's when I got the core. And I feel like, okay, well, I've got a basic orchestra that's available to me. And then where Spitfire has been great is that they've been doing these other little packages that are like $29. And so if there's something that you feel like you want to go in a little bit different direction, like I don't really want to spend a whole ton of money, but I really like the Abbey Road sound because that's a sound that I grew up on. I mean, 60s and 70s British music is what was what I was raised on. That's when I started playing music. That's what I listened to. And so those are the kind of sounds in my head. And like, well, I want to add a little bit of that to what I'm able to do here in Logic. And so in addition to like the BBC, like I grabbed the Abbey Road, was it Low Strings, I think it was called, and looking at a few other things that were like iconic sounds. I'm not expecting to do like giant orchestral stuff. In fact, Ben's done quite a bit more with, orchestral stuff and some of the things he's done for the short films than I have. But I kind of look at it as like I can put elements of this kind of music into my music, but it doesn't have to be cheesy. It can sound really good. And that's what I've really enjoyed about the Spitfire libraries. I mean, I think some of my favorite old recordings, and some that are maybe the close mic strings, like you just hear everything so well. I mean, you hear the bow drag across the strings, and I've really enjoyed that character in the music. So even if you're listening to, whatever it is, like the Beatles or Pink Floyd or whatever, like you hear some of that texture in there, and I feel that's like what they really nail in the Spitfire pack. So yeah, the big libraries are probably not what I should spend my money on just because of what I do, but they're fantastic. And so it's great that there's some other options, whereas I need to invest in, hardware on analog synthesizers or something. I don't need to invest so much in that, but yet they give me some options to go and pick things that I want. Low Abbey Road strings are perfect to me.
Yeah,
but that's it. Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head again. That's it. It's all about options. That's what it is. It's all about options, and kind of we're so lucky at the moment in terms of whichever area you're looking, whether it be orchestral sample libraries, any kind of sample libraries, synths, digital synth, analog synths. There are so many options at the moment I mean, it's a real cliche to go, hey, we live in really lucky, fortunate times, but it does genuinely feel that way. Yeah, I don't think we've ever had so many options in so many areas as we do now, right from spending nothing and getting things for free, right up to spending ridiculous amounts of money,
which is a brilliant segue, because the other thing that Spitfire released this week was a new package for labs, which of course is free, and it's an incredibly brilliant package of sample packs that you get for nothing. No, literally nothing. You just click on the thing, download it, and it's in. And the new one is the Autoharp, which came out just the other day. And Christian sampled this one himself, and it does sound really nice. I love that. I love that kind of that, and things like Appalachian guitars. Those really long, thin things. A friend of mine in America sampled one of those, and it just
Dulcimer.
Dulcimers, yeah, that kind of thing as well. Yeah, they're lovely, lovely sounds.
Yeah.
So, I want to say, Ty, are you a labs user as well as all the expensive stuff?
Well, the funny part about this is I don't know whether you know that, but there's another kind of web podcast website called Sonic State. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Vaguely.
And
no.
I've had certain dealings with them occasionally in the past. And
Sonic what?
State.
Sonic State.
S-C-A-T-E. Yeah, it's quite good. Yeah, you should check it out. And they've I think they have announced it now, so I think I can say. So some of the contributors to that were asked to write a piece, and they're releasing a compilation.
Oh yes.
And so when I did mine, I won't go into the story about why I did it, but I think I may have talked to you, Robbie, about it.
You did.
Yes. So I ended up, you'll find out what the long, convoluted story is. I ended up only using free software. And so the whole track was just me using free software. And I would say of that, 90 to 95% of it was all the Spitfire Lab stuff.
Yeah.
And it is amazing once you go into there and start getting creative, and almost not trying to do something too clever, or not trying to make it sound too authentic, just being creative and using it in unusual ways. The Labs libraries are fantastic. Absolutely brilliant and totally free. And the reason apart from the fact that there's some great sounds in there, the reason I went that route is I wouldn't even let myself use Contact libraries, because obviously Contact isn't free, you have to pay for it. So that it had to have its own engine, had to be totally free, and that's why I went down the Labs route. But the biggest compliment I can say is there's a few people that have heard it and said how great the track is, but they had no idea about the whole backstory to it. And so they just thought it was me just writing a track, and it was only afterwards I explained, no, it's all free software, that's the whole point of it. But they had no idea. So that kind of says it all in itself. You don't, just because you're using free software, you don't have to apologize for it.
No.
And the Lab stuff is fantastic. Anyone that hasn't downloaded the Spitfire Labs stuff, honestly, you really do owe it yourself. Just download everything. Download the whole thing. There'll be definitely stuff in there that you'll use again and again and again.
Yeah, for sure. And it's it's great. I mean, I put it on my son's iMac, and he's now got he's got all the Lab stuff. He's got BBC SO, Discovery, pretty much everything on there is free, because I'm a type bastard, and so I won't buy anything for him, because the thing is, when I were a lad, there was none of this stuff was around. So I'm thinking, well, he's got all of this stuff, and I don't think I'm selling him short, because he's got some pretty cool stuff that I would never have when I was his age. So yeah. Anyway,
and instead, the money that you could have spent on him, you just spend on yourself buying shit. Yeah.
Exactly. He doesn't know it yet, but you might be getting one of my Emaxes. I'm sort of toying with the idea.
Oh, I love the way you throw that bit at the end, just to make yourself look like the perfect dad. Because
I feel better. Yeah.
That would be the perfect dad thing to do.
Which one is he going to get?
Oh, he's only going
the
to get
broken one.
Yeah. The bottom
Here,
of the range one.
I'm storing this in your room for a while. It's yours.
Technically, Chris, that is kind of what it is, because I haven't made my mind up whether I'm going to sell it yet.
It's on permanent loan. If I ever need it back.
Yeah, it's like, absolutely. No. So, he's going to have that to play with, hopefully, and see what he does with it. Any other thoughts on the Labs? I mean, it's great. It's free. It sounds great.
It's brilliant, and I love the variety of the strums as well. There's like strums in like loads of different like scales and what have you. But one thing that did, I always feel bad like saying anything negative about Labs, because it is so good and it is completely free, and so this is just me being picky, really. You've got the two like faders. One's like volume and the other one's like expression, isn't it, or something. When you put the expression one up, it's like it's the same effect as velocity. To me, it's like it's being plucked or hit harder than it was before, and yet the velocity itself doesn't seem to do anything. So if you have that red fader there that you can see there, if you have that all the way up to the top and you hit it softly, it's still like it's been whacked at maximum velocity, and if you have it all the way down, the same in reverse.
I mean,
the
reality is, because the whole point of these is there's not masses of velocity layers, so the reality is with that, I just think if you keep it at the bottom, you just get access to velocity, and I think the only point really you'd put it up for is either if you don't want any velocity at all, or occasionally if you're getting the decay of the note, you can actually almost use it as changing the sustain level. But that's I know what you mean, but that's kind of that's how you would use it normally. I mean, the way I would use that is I'd keep it on velocity all the time, but then if I had a sustain and wanted the sustain level to rise up, you basically play the pattern and then slide it up to keep sustain up.
Right. Yeah. Oh well, that sorted it then. Yeah. That was my only problem with it. It's brilliant. Apart from that, now he's sorted that. But yeah, it's great.
Let's get a guitarist point of view on this.
Yeah, it sounds great. With stringed instruments, that's not something I ever thought I would go to a sample instrument for, because, I mean, it's like once you start building up, what you can do, like, I got a guitar, a bass, I've got lap steel, and pretty much anything else you put your hands on, like it comes naturally. It just you don't have to think about it a whole lot. Like, ukulele, I'll just borrow one and record it. And like, I've never played one before. Like, okay, I understand this. But it does make it nice in that they have some of these other instruments like mandolin or autoharp or dulcimer or things like that. Where like, I don't really want to go and hunt one down. And even if it's cheap, even if it's $100 or $200, like that's still $100 or $200. So
yeah,
I'm not going to be building an entire song around that, but for something to slide in that sounds real, like, and then I'm pretty picky about that because a lot of guitar-based sample stuff just does not sound good to me, and some of it's the way that it's played, and I think people are getting a lot better at that. Actually, Torsten's really good, and he's really getting that down with the guitar sound, but triggering from keys. So it can be done, and I think with some of this stuff, it's kind of to the level that, I mean, even with the free labs, that you're recording a track and you're like, well, I would just like to have a little auto harp or mandolin in there, and you can mix it in, and because of the way it's recorded, those nuances, it feels like you're sitting next to it. Well, it works.
The great thing about it is, I don't know whether you know this, but the way that the kind of labs stemmed from what Spitfire were doing a few years ago when they were putting out free libraries, and you basically just kind of gave a nominal charity donation, and they would put that money to a charity, and you got a free library. But the reason all this happened was the fact that Christian did a guitar sample because he was basically working on a project, and it was something like he was just trying out in just his bedroom or the studio or something, and he started just doing some very, very rough, very basic samples of a guitar. And what he started to realize was that this particular sample, this little library he'd made for himself for a project he was working on, he was using again and again and again. And the reason it was so usable was it was so imperfect, because this is the stage. Remember this was before. Now it's trendy and current for people to do imperfect libraries, but back then everyone wanted libraries to sound precise and exact, and he did exactly the opposite. And so the labs thing came about because of him recording this guitar sample, and he thought there was something in it. The idea of doing something imperfect and making it sound human. And I don't think Christian kind of gets the credit for the fact that, I mean, he's done the recordings on this one, and what is great about this library is exactly as Cryss said, it sounds real because it's got all the crap in there with it. It's not made to sound perfect. It's made to sound realistic and human. And that, going back to the whole Spitfire thing, is what I love about the Spitfire. There's something very human about all of their libraries, every single one of them, and it's all kind of wrapped up, especially in the labs libraries, which are not perfect, and that's what's so great about them.
Very true.
Yeah,
very
well,
true.
And I imagine if you're very young and you've grown up on modern pop music, you haven't heard as much of that, but like listening to the classics, whatever it is, like John Bonham's kick. Squeaking, his kick pedal squeaking, on Zeppelin recordings, or the slowing and the speeding up of tempo, things like that are those beautiful imperfections like that. It really makes the music come alive to me, and I really miss that. I appreciate some modern pop production because it's unbelievably perfect. It's beautiful, but at the same time, like there's some of that old stuff that just still really hits me in the right place.
There's other examples as well, like accidental little gaps at the beginning of samples, giving drum machines groove.
Well, it's the Lindrum hi-hat.
Has
got that just tiny bit of delay. It just gives it the groove.
I'm sure that mustn't have been supposed to be like that. I don't know, but like it's great, you know.
And I mean, I was listening to that multi-track, the Slave to the Rhythm thing. Isolated the drums first because that's me. I love those drums and the whole story about how they got those drums recorded. And I wanted to hear, because the groove of that song has a slight imperfection because of the timing of the loop that they generated using these digital multi-tracks. And when you listen to the drums isolated, you can hear the guys, because what they did is they just recorded a practice session. They got this go-go band in from Washington, D.C., who were just stoned out of their heads, having a laugh, weren't taking anything seriously. And they were just playing stuff, and Trevor and Steve Lipson just pressed record and then built the rhythm track from that. And when you isolate the rhythm track, you can hear these guys laughing and joking in the background, and that is there all the way through the song. Same with Grace is making some sort of odd noises in between lines all the way through the song. It's these little things are just there, and they just make it, this thing that sounds beautiful and polished and perfect is just made up of lots of slightly imperfect things, which
it's always, but the same with all the best music. All the best music is all about the imperfections.
Yeah.
Always. Even the stuff that you think is perfect, it's absolutely not. The good stuff isn't.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone, I'm a bit of a Kraftwerk fan, but go back and listen to Kraftwerk and all the good stuff. There's mistakes all over the place. There's mistimings, because all of the even when they could use sequencers, a lot of the time the drumming was done by hand, and there's loads of cock-ups. And they're the best bits. That's what makes
and that's what we as humans tune into. We
absolutely,
because you listen to a sine wave, it's a perfect tone.
Yeah,
and it's dull.
I think I wish people, and I don't want to sit here because I swore I wasn't going to come on today and just do my normal the youth of today, blah blah blah. But I do wish young musicians would actually realise that just step away from 4 on the floor and 16 quantize, step away from it, because that's not the interesting bits.
No.
Quantize is something that if you use it as a tool rather than an automatic go-to. If you're going to play, actually try and play rather than sitting there doing it on a piano grid and the piano roll, making sure that it all fits the grid, because that just, all of that music is just, although it may sound great now, believe me, it's not going to last the test of time. No. It's absolutely not.
Absolutely.
So please, exactly as Cryss said, all the best stuff is all the stuff that's full of imperfection and crap.
Definitely,
it's the good stuff.
And one other thing to think about.
Perfectly quantized drum beat just sounds awful.
It's crap.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crap.
Awful.
And you listen to going back to the days when drum machines sounded great. Exactly as you were saying about the Lynn Hat. It's the fact that the imperfection was in the machine. It's the same as kind of the EMU, the SP1200. The reason that sounded so amazing was it was the imperfections in the swing settings that made it sound great. But if you just quantized it now, this is the problem. A lot of the modern stuff, 16s is 16s, and that just sounds rubbish.
Yeah.
So anyway,
the other thing too is with the gear that we use, because especially as here, like, we can get a little bit obsessive about some of our favorite musicians, our influences, and I've really enjoyed that over the years. Like, what did they use on that track? What was that particular thing? How did they mod their whatever, to get that tone? And it's funny because you do find people that are like that really obsess about those things themselves and are very purposeful about it. But it is kind of funny to find a lot of interviews of people that, when an interview is like really obsessive about, like, what did you use in that? Why did you do that? How did you get that perfect sound and that? And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, that's just the guitar that I had, or that's the piano I had, or whatever, that's just the stomp box that I used. That's all that was available. Like, but that tone is the iconic thing. Like, wow, that's just what it was.
The thing is with this is the fact that I have a problem with the whole analyzing of music, period, and analyzing technology, period. It's the fact that we all do it automatically. Of, it's like, I don't know if anyone's listened to the latest John Grant single, who basically, it is 1982. And the reason it's 1982, and it's not 1981, and it's not 1983. It's 1982 because the way the guitars use the guitar sounds, the drum sounds, the chord pad, everything. It's 1982. And so at some point in my head, I'm sitting there analysing this, and we all do it. We all don't want to do it on occasions. We all wish we could have that little knob to turn off analysis and enjoy it. Do you remember when we used to listen to music and enjoy it without actually going, oh yes, I love the snare sound on the third beat.
I can't remember that.
Exactly. Well, we did it. We did it. But the reality is that analysing music, honestly, is not good because there's a thin line between analysing and emulating and copying, because when you start hearing things that you like, natural human nature means that you'll be there going, oh, well, I like the way they did that. If I did that, I could. And it's exactly the same as you're saying when you start analysing equipment. Some people start thinking, well, if I do that mod and I do that, then I'm going to be able to. Do you know what? Cut all of this. Listen to music. Try to listen to music to try and enjoy it, but take away something a lot more broadly speaking, rather than going into specifics. And I know how difficult it is, but the time to do that is when you're younger. If you can do that when you're young and stop yourself ending up like us 4 old men who just analyse the fuck out of everything, if you can do that, it's a great thing to do, because you'll find your own voice. You'll be yourself and not trying to copy people.
I was listening this morning when the radio went off on the alarm. They played a few tracks that stuck in my head. Kashmir was on at 8 o'clock, and that's been ringing around my ears all day. And that's not perfect when you listen to it. And then they played a Young Fathers track, and I love Young Fathers. I mean, that's absolutely brilliant. And my wife was going, because I'm kind of singing along to it, which is difficult with one of their songs. But my wife said, "Oh, this bloody thing is all out of tune." I said, "No, but that's it. It's this kind of, everything's just not as it should be, and it's lovely for it." And what was the other thing I heard the other day that was, it's just the imperfections are what makes it. And you've got to kind of get over that thing that everything you hear on the radio or on your streaming service, it's not there because it's perfect. It's there because it's not perfect, I guess. That's what human beings tune into, is the modulations. Everything modulates.
I don't know. Some of the shit that my daughter's listening to at the moment that is perfect. Christ.
Yes, quite. Anyway, let's move on. Spitfire Labs, so labs.spitfireaudio.com for Autoharp, and then just spitfireaudio.com if you want to learn more about the new repackaged, remastered, reversioned Spitfire Symphony Orchestra, which is out now. I just also want to do this because this guy and I go back a long, long way. We were talking about these plucked string instruments. I'm just going to put this up there just to see if I can drive a little bit of traffic his way. His name's Tracy Collins. He lives in America, and he makes these perfect little small sample libraries, and this is one of them. This is the Mountain Dulcimer. They're all for Contact, which is unfortunate because I don't have it anymore, but I've got a lot of his old stuff that he used to do on the Akai, and they're just stupidly cheap. This is $30 for a Mountain Dulcimer. And it's so beautifully sampled. So go and see indigenous.com and go, and if you're interested in sort of different instruments like guitars, mandolins, brass, dulcimers. Yeah,
I've got some of them. I can absolutely confirm they are fantastic. And again, they're not perfect, which is what makes them fantastic.
Exactly. So there we go. Let's move on to the next news topic, which is the big news of the week, I guess. And we've just got to throw our hat in the ring and pass comment on the news that let's see, get the right thing here. Where did it go? Damn, there it is. Right. We just interrupt this broadcast for a message from Dave.
Hi everyone, Dave Smith here with some really exciting news from Sequential. I was just realizing that it was 50 years ago that I graduated from Cal Berkeley with a degree in electrical engineering and computer science. And wow, what a trip it has been since that day. I never could have predicted what was going to happen and what has happened. But here I find myself 50 years later announcing the fact we are becoming part of the Focusrite family.
And so there you go. That's the news that Sequential has been acquired, lock, stock and barrel by Focusrite. It's going to remain as a separate entity under their umbrella. Focusrite, as you probably know, own a number of brands like Adam Audio and Novation, of course, and now, of course, Sequential. Personally, I think this is fantastic news because it guarantees Sequential's continued existence. It guarantees Dave a future. Because with all due respect, he's getting to the age where that sort of stuff needs to be secured. It guarantees his team a future, and it guarantees us the Sequential brand for many years to come under his guidance. And he's still going to be fully active as he is today. Nothing changes in that regard. So, who wants to go first on the thoughts of this? Ty's geared up. Go.
Well, no. You see, I'd love to say, oh God, when did this happen? I missed this. Honestly, the morning it happened, Christ, it was just, my phone was just ping, 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 ping. For some reason, the entire world thought that I needed to know this. And so I got all these messages woken up with, oh my God, what's going on? What do you think? And I'm waking up going, what do you think about what
So what do you think?
I think it's great. Look, at the end of the day, let's be honest, a lot of these, when they have these kind of buyouts and takeovers and all this kind of thing, we always know that normally it's a case of, oh, company's in trouble, blah, blah, blah. We know that the company's going to change. We know that this is going to happen. It's all going to end up badly. And in 5 years' time, no one's going to remember who the original company were. That's what normally happens. And it feels to me like this really isn't like that at all. No. Exactly as you said, this just feels like a timing thing that that he's got the opportunity to sell up to a company that's got a proven record. And also a proven record where it does seem to not interfere. And I think it's the interference side of things that normally where it goes wrong, because we all know, I'm not going to start mentioning names, but there are certain companies that when they buy certain companies, they obviously do interfere and it becomes part of the overall umbrella. Whereas I kind of get the feeling and hope that although Focusrite now own this, that they're going to kind of just let it carry on as it is. And people talking about some kind of cooperation between Novation and Sequential, who knows, it may happen, it may not, but I don't personally see it. They're just two separate companies who there may be some kind of crossover. I think from our selfish point of view, maybe over in the UK it might mean that it might be easier to get things serviced or repaired or something. I don't know.
Or even in stock, absolutely.
Or in stock, all of that. And bearing in mind the crap that we're going through in terms of trying to get anything from abroad into the UK at the moment, which is just laughable. True. So that could be helpful in that point of view. But it feels a very positive, good thing to me. And as you say, he's getting on.
Yeah,
and at some
70,
stage, you quite expect him to go, enough's enough. And I think it's a good umbrella. That's what I think.
When they are currently doing really well, because they're just.
That's what I mean. Normally these things happen when the company's really struggling, but that's not how I see Sequential at all at the moment. So.
One of the first things after I thought, that actually makes sense, and it's absolutely, I have no experience of either of these companies at the business level, but it seems like it's the perfect fit. And then all of a sudden I thought, oh, what a shame that Chris Huggett's not around. Because can you imagine, the brains of Chris Huggett and Dave Smith doing something together? That would have been amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But, still. I think and some people have mentioned in the chat room that maybe this is not driven by that, but it's, there was a Chris Huggett-sized hole in Novation, and maybe this will go some way to not filling it, but certainly... making it good,
augmenting it, possibly.
Augmenting it, absolutely.
Possibly.
So, So I don't own any Sequential gear. I'm probably the only person in this room. Do Chris, you own Sequential stuff? Yeah. I know you do, Ben, and well, you own most of everything, so I'm not even going to come to you, Ty. But as Sequential, all right, I own Focusrite equipment, so there you go. I've got a tiny bit of skin in this game. But from a Sequential owner's point of view, Ty mentioned accessibility to servicing and repairs, and even just plain old old-fashioned availability of stock. Is this a good thing for you as owners, Ben?
Well, I think so. Yeah, I think Focusrite have got an excellent track record with support and that. I know from Novation gear that I've had in the past, when something's gone wrong, they've been brilliant. So
yeah, they're absolutely brilliant Focusrite.
So going forward, I think as a Sequential owner, then that's got to be a good thing there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I agree totally about. I think, to be fair, the two companies, Novation and Sequential, who I had real dealings with when they were DSI. For me, I think they were the two best companies that I've had dealings with in terms of support. I had a problem with a Tempest where I think one of the voice cards went down, and it was literally just, okay, we'll send you a new card, and we'll send it you if you can pay 20 quid for the shipping or something, and just send the old card back. And they paid for that, and that was it. There was no charge. And with Novation, I had a problem with, I think it was some sliders or something. I remember, and they just said, "Oh no, there's no charge." They just sent me new sliders and
exactly the same experience. Yeah,
that kind of service is just so rare these days. So
I was blown away because my headphone adapter broke off in my Scarlett interface. I was just pulling it out, and it left half of itself behind. Could not get it out. I've had this Focusrite 3 or 4 years, and I couldn't find an online store to sell, specific parts. So I emailed Focusrite support, and they got back to me within half an hour saying, "Give us your address, we'll send you the parts." And I said, "Okay, how much?" And they said, "No, we'll send you the parts." That was it.
I think I got there was a problem with I've got a Focusrite Liquid 4 Pro, 4 Pre, and some problem with it, and basically. They basically said if you deliver it, and it's not that far from me, and so I took it down, got sorted, got repaired, no charge.
Yeah, and that's customer service.
It's fantastic.
It's great,
fantastic.
Yeah.
It's well out of warranty and no charge. So
yeah, no, it's good. Chris,
very good.
Your thoughts on Sequential?
Yeah, well, as Ty was saying, this is a good time to do it on multiple fronts. I watched, I don't know, maybe about 5 years ago or so, there was a boutique pedal company called Cattle and Bread. They're actually still around. Small, Portland-based company, making cool stuff. They had got a couple really great designers on the team that were doing very interesting stuff, and they were at the top of their game. I mean, things were blowing up for them. They were getting big. They were hiring employees. The guy that started the company was a couple years younger than me, and he was driving his car down in the city, and a tree limb broke and killed him. He had no plan for the business after he died, and he wasn't expecting to die. And the guy was, not that old. And so it just messed the company up. Their lead, it says Cattle and Bread aren't still. Oh, okay, yeah, they're a shell. I agree. They had no plan, and the main designer left, and there was disputes with the guy's mom trying to take over the company. All this really horrible stuff that went along, and it really has killed them. They're nothing compared to what they were before. And it was a company we would like to see continue to do good things and keep their designer Howard on and that kind of stuff. But with Sequential, I think we'd like to see the same kind of stuff. We want to see the legacy of Sequential, the sound of Sequential continue on. And so Dave taking care of things in a way that, he's whatever, 70 or 71 or something. He's not old. And I know he could retire, but he's still in the prime. I mean, look at Tom Oberheim. I mean, he's in his mid 80s and he's still tinkering with synths. So there's nothing wrong with that. But if I were in his spot too, I'd be thinking probably the same thing. Where if he can unload some of the other parts of the business onto other people, if they can use some of the resources that Novation and Focusrite have to whatever sort of logistical things, getting parts, design, all that kind of stuff. This could be a really great thing for Sequential, in that we might see more and more products. Maybe Dave will spend more time just designing synthesizers instead of running a company.
Yeah, and
that would be a fantastic thing. I don't know how much stuff will be swapped or shared between Novation and Sequential, as they're still two independent companies as far as that goes. But if there were some of that, that would be a great thing too. Yeah, so I think it just, to echo what you guys said, I think it is a positive thing all the way around. I really wish the best. And, my secret desire in all this is that Dave is freed up to work on some sort of super synthesizer.
Yeah.
Because, the Prophet 10.5 was great to see that released. I have an OB6, which I love. And we're all hoping for an OBX collaboration and whatever he could do with Tom Oberheim. But wouldn't it be fantastic if Sequential was working on some mega, 16 voice Moog 1 competitor? That would be
Sequential
great. That
one.
would be, yeah.
No, I want to.
Well, it'd have to be it'd have to be Sequential 2, since that would be the next sequential number.
What?
Yeah.
Sequential. Ba-dum-tsh. He's here all week. Yeah, so
I think I was just going to say, I think Tom, I think Dave himself thinks that it thinks of it as some kind of expansion of the company, because the big announcement and everything, it's like, come on, let's get excited about this. Big things are going to happen here. I think, like, if he was just selling because he's coming to the end of his career,
this is
it could have been a quiet takeover, couldn't it?
It's forward planning. It's his pension. It's his legacy. It's the legacy and the continued employment of his staff and his team. And he's clearly got a great team working for him there. It's securing their futures, securing his future. I bet there's probably a clause in the deal that says he has to stay on for at least another 5 years or so. He might stay on beyond that, but there'll be that kind of minimum clause. And like you said, he hasn't got to worry about all of that business stuff so much now, because he's got Focusrite can take care of a lot of that. So yeah, I think it's good news all round for everyone. So well done, and congratulations to both Focusrite and to Sequential. Long may they live. Let's talk very quickly about a few other things. Let's keep on the hardware vibe. We spoke last week, I said, about the new iMac M1s and the iPad Pros with the M1 chip, and we spoke about how it's getting closer to this kind of unified thing going on. Well, no sooner had we spoken about all of that, our friends over at Studio One Expert, Logic Pro Expert, and Production Expert came up with this story here about the so-called Apple M2 chips, literally now going into production with a view to them being ready by July. They're calling it the M2. It could be the M1X, has been suggested by the people. But we are now, we've had M1, it was like autumn, fall last year, wasn't it? I think that the M1 came out, and they've come and we've seen them. They're pretty good by all accounts. I've not tried one myself, but everything I see is good. They seem to be delivering in all respects, particularly in things like audio and visual stuff. And now we're kind of going to the next level, and we're seeing, I don't know, nobody really knows what the specs of this is. We don't know, because I think the M1 is 8 CPU, 7 or 8 GPU, and 16 neural, whatever it is. I don't understand any of that. Onboard memory, onboard graphics, all of this kind of on this one little thing that works brilliantly together, and obviously delivers this high performance, low heat, low power consumption, etc., etc. Not quite there, I think, in terms of heavy duty music production. Although I think Nick did this test, didn't he, where he had so many tracks running all these instances, and it just didn't fall over. But I think we're probably looking for something a bit more powerful, particularly in the iMac. We had a 24-inch launched last week. I wouldn't even bat an eyelid at that. I'm waiting for the big one, whether it's going to be a 27 or maybe even bigger, as some people have suggested, because they went from 21.5 to 24. Now they're going to go 27 to maybe 30-inch iMacs. But it's got to be good stuff, hasn't it? Do you agree?
Yeah, it's very exciting, and what I've seen so far. I mean, like yourself, I haven't actually had my hands on one of them, but I've got like an old Mac Pro. It's like I can't even remember what spec it is now, but it's it's got Xeons in it. It's got 64 gig of RAM in it, and then you've got this like 8 gig 8 gig Mac Mini that it just wiped the floor
Not
with
full,
that,
yeah.
you know. And it's like, how are they doing this? It's like witchcraft. But I don't know how they're going to improve it. Like which way they're going? Is it so they can put more memory with them? Because I've not seen any M1 system, I don't think, that's had more than 16 gig of RAM.
I think 16 is the max at the moment
Yeah.
with the M1. So again, it's one of these things where we've got so conditioned into thinking, got to have this amount of memory, got to have these amount of cores, got to have this amount of GPU power or whatever. This is a different concept. This is not your traditional motherboard, CPU, separate RAM, separate this, separate that. This is unified, and that's why it works so well, because it just it minimizes the travel of the data and the processing, because it's all taking place in this one small area.
Impedance.
So I think we talk about 8 and 16 and think, well, I've got 32 gig of RAM in my 2013 iMac. So I need more. I need 64 gig. Well, I don't, because the system's far more efficient, so I don't need all of that RAM. So, myself. Go ahead, Ty.
No, I think it's. I think I'm not going to say the problem I have with it, because I don't have a problem with it. It's great. It's advancing technology, which is wonderful. I think it's, from my point of view, it's what they're trying to gain by the overall system. And I think the one thing that keeps coming up about it is the heat side of things and the compactness of it, which means that they can be fitting technology that's a lot faster into bodies that are a lot thinner and don't need to worry about heating and all this kind of thing, which is fantastic if you're going to be just using a MacBook Air or something like that. And I've only had limited use on an M1 on a MacBook Air, and it was great, and it was really fast, and it didn't get hot, and it was everything about it was wonderful. From my point of view, I'm more bothered about pure grunt and power. And I'm not bothered about the heating, because the new Mac Pros deal with the heating fairly well. It's not like the trash cans where you're starting to have issues. So the new ones deal with it a lot better. So from my point of view, I don't care whether it's more compact or the heating issues. It's more just brute force that I'm really bothered about. So if they can improve on, the ones that I'm bothered about are the MacBook Pro and the Mac Pro. They're the only ones that I'm concerned about. And if they can make my Mac Pro faster and better, but I don't know until they change the limitation. The thing is, as you say, the figures now don't bear any resemblance. So I think in my Mac Pro, I can't remember what it is, 600 and something gig of RAM in my Mac Pro. But the reality is that them having 64 gig, which is what they're talking about, in one of these with an M2 or M1X, whatever it's called, is that 64 going to be better and quicker than mine? And if it is, that's when I become interested. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's difficult to. All I'm really bothered about is I just want the best that you can get, and that's what I'm bothered about. It's all about brute speed, power. They're the things. I'm not bothered about whether it's compact or doesn't heat.
So there's a Twitter account called Leaks Apple Pro, and this is what they're saying. Apple M1X is what they're referring it to. 12 cores, 8 performance, 4 high efficiency. Coming first on the MacBook Pro 16-inch, supposedly Q1 2021. Well, that's gone now. Up to 64 gig of RAM, up to 8 terabytes of storage, starting at $23.99 US, which is is pretty reasonable, I guess, for a machine of that performance for a MacBook Pro anyway.
No. Starting at, believe me.
Starting at, yes. That's
basically that will be between 6,000 and 7,000 by the time you actually spec it up.
Yeah,
to
true.
That.
This is very true.
I think the price of the 8 terabyte one would probably.
Well, yeah, with that, if you get 64 with 8 terabytes, you're probably looking at 5-6 grand.
I've got that. I've got that with the old system. I've got a 64 with 64 meg with 8 terabytes and on a Mac Pro, MacBook Pro, and that was stupid money.
Yeah. But as I've discovered in the last in this week alone, Macs last without too much
completely.
Interfering.
Yeah, they do.
You know, this whole show, everything I do is run on this 27-inch 2013 iMac 3.4 i5 quad core with 32 gig of RAM, and this week it's the first time I've ever done anything to it, and I had a new hard drive fit, I had an SSD drive fitted, and it is literally like having a brand new computer again. It's stunning how rapid and how stable, and it's just yes, I'm happy. And that's like, this is an 8-year-old Mac. And I remember, you know, and I use PCs, by the way. You know, I've got a Xeon 32 gig with, you know, big graphics card in it for work over here. So I split my time between the two. I don't get into this Mac versus PC thing. They both do the job really well. But when I used to have a PC of my own, I was upgrading it probably every year or two. A little bit more RAM, a slightly faster processor, bigger hard drive, different graphics card, and then all the drivers that you have to install for that. And it's just that with this, it was just buy it, stick it on there, does the job. That's it. Leave it. I mean, my 2008 iMac is the other side of the house with my son, and it's running Logic Pro, and it's doing all the stuff that he wants it to do. And that's a 2008 iMac with a Core 2 Duo processor. So yeah, I've you know. That's what I like about it. You pay up front, but you get longevity.
You do.
That's what
absolutely.
That's what I like. Anyway, Apple. We've had enough of those for the last couple of weeks, but yes, expect something new. They're talking about July for this processor, and I think they're talking about a new range of larger iMacs later in the year, sort of around the fall, and beginning of 2022. They're talking about a smaller Mac Pro, which I'm quite excited about because I'm looking to buy a new one in the next couple of years to get, you know, this is going to get retired. And they got rid of the iMac Pro, which I'd always had an eye on. So that's no longer being done. But if they're going to do a smaller Mac Pro like desktop, then yeah, I'm in. I'm in on that
would be what I would be looking for as well, and continue using my MacBook Pro for my regular life stuff, but to have something that's a little more powerful than that as a desktop for the studio would be fantastic.
Absolutely. There we go. Right, let's talk about this. I don't know about you. Some years ago I was struggling to. I wanted a new door. I wanted to. I'm a big Reason guy. Always loved Reason, but I wanted to get into like a proper audio door. And I was looking through different things. I came across Ardor, which is this open source system. And it's completely free, and I thought I'll give it a go. And then somebody said, if you like that, then you'll like Harrison Mixbus, which is based on Ardor, and you just pay a little bit on top of that, but you get all the Harrison plugins, and you know the Harrison desks have got a big reputation. Well, they've just updated their standard DAW to version 7, and I get emails like I get Waves emails every week saying, you know, get this with this off and get this with that off. I can have this apparently for $19, the new version of Mixbus. Or, as they keep trying to push me, towards Mixbus 32C, which is the big version. And they can say I can have that for a measly $99, which, you know, in the grand scheme of things, that's pretty cheap. But I don't know of many other people. I still keep Mixbus around, but I never really use it. Am I the only one because I never really find anyone else?
I was aware of it, but I thought it was just like a Cool Edit Pro kind of thing.
Nice.
I thought it was a multi-track audio thing. And then, doing a bit of research for the show, I've discovered that it is a full-blown DAW, isn't it? It does do MIDI and virtual instruments, and it looks pretty decent.
Yeah.
I've got to
it's
say.
not as slick as the best, but it's certainly up there in terms of feature sets. And of course, I wouldn't know the Harrison sound from the SSL sound, from the Sony Oxford sound, from whatever, because I've not been in and around that world at all, really. However, they say that this has the Harrison sound, and apparently the Harrison sound is well sought after. So, I don't know. Ty, you ever dabbled with this?
Yes. Sorry, that was really great, wasn't it? That was, how professional is that? Blah, 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 blah. I suddenly went into tongue. Sorry. No. Yes. So then starts the sentence with no, followed Christ. No. Yes. So I did exactly the offer that you're talking about some time ago when I was being plastered with the whole, buy into this for, again, I think it was something like $20 or something.
Yeah,
and I did buy it. And the reason I bought it, so this is some time ago, it's an earlier version. And the reason I bought it was exactly what you're talking about. It was all to do with this thing of the sound of the sound engine. Again, this is one of the things that I'm really, really passionate about. And it's one of those things that I wish people would realise that each DAW sounds different. The processing going on in there, in the processing itself and in the mixer sections and the gain staging and all of that, they all sound different. And so I looked into it, and I did buy this, whatever it was, I can't remember what version it was, and I loaded it in, and the DAW side of things just frustrated me. But in terms of the mixer sound, in terms of the, as you say, the Harrison sound, it did sound lovely, and it definitely added something when you were mixing on it. I just loaded in a multi-track of WAVs that I was working on, and the mixer side of things does sound different and sound a bit special without having to plaster lots of insert plugins to try and model it, because I use Nuendo and Cubase mainly, but mainly Nuendo. And if I'm trying to make it sound like an SSL or a Neve or a Focusrite or whatever, I'll be loading in on each channel the plugins to do that. And the Harrison system did this without having to worry about anything really. It just naturally, it's almost like they were embedded into it.
Yes.
And it did sound lovely, but the DAW side of things just left me so cold. I did a few experiments with it and then just went, okay, I've proved a point here. It does sound great, but then never used it again. And again, like you, I then keep getting the you can now update for £2.50 and
it's annoying,
and a night with my daughter kind of thing. It's that kind of it's next to it's nothing. It's I think that if you're in for a cheap DAW that sounds great, I think it's brilliant. But in terms of the DAW side of things, I found quite limiting.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that they will mix on it. They won't use it to sequence and program, but once they've got all their stems, they'll throw it in there to get that sound and mix on it. So, I guess it's just one of those tools. And I guess the reason they can offer it so cheaply is because it's based on open source software. So they're probably only having to do half the work that, say, a team behind, Logic or Cubase would have, to work on, because there's already the platform there, the Ardor platform. So, Ben, Chris, do either of you use this or have used this? Would think of using it?
I'm too long in the tooth to shift to a new DAW. I just can't. I won't be able to do it.
I'm with you. Yeah. I'm with you.
Can't do
it. It is a big thing to do.
Yeah.
Because it's like learning from scratch again. It literally is going back to square one. But it's there has to be a real pull. To actually do it, there has to be something which is so innovative and so new and so different that But yes, people should check out just the fact of they do all sound different, and some sound rubbish, basically.
Yeah.
Some DAWs sound appalling. I've worked with people where I can absolutely, they'll send me through a rough mix or something, and I can literally just turn around and go, "Oh, you've mixed this on Logic." It's as obvious as that. I mean, that's the worst one out of all of them, to be fair. But it used to be Pro Tools. It used to be the old version of Pro Tools. The mixing on that was appalling. But now it's Logic just sounds dreadful in terms of the mixing side of things. When you compare it to something like Nuendo, which is the same engine and now is Cubase, which it never used to be, but now is. But yeah, people need to check that out just to.
I think it's good to have 2 or 3 options in your toolkit for doing stuff, because I like the workflow of Reason to get ideas out of my head, but I don't like using it as a DAW traditionally, as a mixer, because it's a little bit too cluttered. So I'll then shift everything into generally Logic now. So I'm an atheist producer. I use Logic and Reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing is, like,
Tumbleweed.
with all these
Sorry,
DAWs,
I'm just waiting for the tumbleweed. Hang on a second. There it goes.
Anyway, Chris.
So, with all these DAWs, I mean, any of them can do what you need to do. And, it's been said, too old. I think at any age, like, if you find something that works for you, keep using it. And, it's been like that for me. I've got so many things to learn, and I'm even outside of music, I want to learn and I want to grow as a person. And so learning a new DAW is like really low on my list of things that I need to do for my life to, when I sit on my deathbed, I'm like, oh geez, I'm glad I switched to, Cubase. But, there's, again, to kind of focus it, I mean, I love plugins and experimenting and trying new things. And I ration out, like, here's how much time I'm going to spend doing this. And I also need to spend time learning how to use the stuff that I have and becoming really proficient with these tools. And so, even like this week, I had one of those experiences where, one of the greatest things we can do is just be conscious and be mindful of what we're doing. Because I had one of these very unconscious experiences, like where I've been, as your plugin folder gets bigger and bigger and you're going through the menus and you're looking for stuff and all that kind of stuff, you're like, oh, where is that thing? What brand is that plugin in? And I kept thinking to myself, I'm like, wouldn't it be great if I could just rearrange this menu to whatever order I want? Yeah, that'd be great. And then the next time I'd open up a project, I'd be like, crap, now where is that thing again? And then I had one of those conscious moments of enlightenment, as I sat here in the studio meditating, it happened upon me that I was like, why don't you Google that? You probably can do that.
Yeah.
And so I went and I searched for it, and sure enough, like, oh, actually this works exactly how I would expect it to work. And I opened the plugin manager and I made new folders and I shifted stuff around and put stuff where I wanted it. And now it's very easy. And that cost me nothing. And it only cost me about half an hour because the only reason it cost me half an hour is because I have so many damn plugins. And so, but it now has streamlined my process so much. So I had a friend that offered me some, the UAD, the Apollo stuff. Like, he was going to give me some of his hardware. And I've got a Focusrite interface here. And he's like, here, try this. And, there's the Luna DAW out now that they're using. And you can use it with this. And there's some advantages of doing it. I'm like, and so I checked it out, and I at the end of the day, it's like, I just don't need to learn that whole system. I've got a system that works, and I've got a DAW that's mature that I like the workflow in. And so why change? That's going to hinder, because at the end of the day, like, what's going to be the best for me making music, and also does the DAW provide the stuff that I need to make it sound good? And I check those boxes. So
never has the phrase "life's too short" been more appropriate for swapping doors. It's just they're all exactly as Chris said. They're all tools. That's all they are. And if you find something that works for you, don't let anybody start telling you should be doing this or should be using this.
I hate those discussions you see online where people say, "Oh, you should get Ableton Live. If you want to make great music, get Ableton Live." Or I just picked Ableton Live out of the bag. But people that say, "Yeah, that's what you got to have." No.
You don't. No.
I wear size 11 shoes, and that's not going to work for somebody with size 8 feet. Yeah. Just as one door that fits my modus operandi, the way that my head works, isn't going to be yours. And so go and try them all.
It's a totally unique thing. It's like someone telling you, you need to wear this.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. If it works for you, sod what anyone else says. That's all that matters. Because at the end of the day, exactly as Chris said, the time that you spend learning this new DAW, the reality is you could be using that time actually doing that thing. What's it called? Writing music. Yeah, that thing.
That's what we're here to do. Yeah,
Exactly. It's the break in your productivity that you can't afford that sometimes.
No, completely.
And another thing too is, like, as far as the sound of it too, we have so many plugins that are modeling these great vintage boards. It's like, well, I can get API and Neve and SSL. Like, I haven't used an SSL board, but I can say like with some confidence that the 4000E is my favorite mixing board. Just because I spend all this time with these plugins. Like, okay, my guitars really sound best, or my synthesizers drums sound best through this version, and you can mix them and match them, and it's great for the workflow. It's great for the tone.
But I'm saying all I'm saying is experiment with exactly that. Don't use a lot of the time using the basic system isn't the best. If you
right,
as you say, we can now just get inserts to shape everything. So try it, do it.
Yeah.
So.
I was watching some videos. There's a guy. I hope I'm going to pronounce his name right. I've seen him online every now and again, but I've started to watch more and more of his videos. Ski Oakenful, who I think works for or does stuff for one of these online music schools as well. But he does this thing where he breaks down tracks and then recreates them with his own, with his own plugins and his own synthesizers. And I love that. I love breaking stuff down to see how things work and then putting it together. And that's how I kind of learn that to do that stuff. And he's using Ableton Live with the push controller, and he's flying around this thing, and it's really working really well. And I'm sat there thinking, I never really got on with Ableton Live, but I like what he's doing here, and I think I might like it. But I don't have a spare £400-500 to just dump on a DAW that I'm not maybe going to like. And I know there's a demo version, but it's limited. And then I remembered, Logic. When the last major Logic update introduced a very kind of Ableton-esque loop kind of thing going on, maybe I should learn how to do that. And I remembered that I'd bought one of these online Logic courses when I bought Logic, because I thought I need to learn this pretty quickly. And I've never really touched it. And I looked on it again the other day, and there's a new section on this thing. So I'm now going to learn how to use what I've got before I start spending money on things that I might or might not like. But Ski Oakenful, well, good guy to watch.
Wagyu says emulations of hardware do steer you towards the real thing sometimes too. And I think that was in response to what I said about mixing boards. And with using DAWs, like I've had so much vintage gear, it's nuts, and I still have some of it around here. But like when it comes to things that I would buy to use to have to record, and I would have a ton of money sunk in it, and I still have some of that stuff, but like I don't have a Neutron biphase anymore. But on the opposite of what Wagyu says, like I've had so much of this cool hardware, I just don't want it sitting around here, and I don't need it. And so now I can go in there, and I've got a Neutron biphase from Arturia that I can use, and I can tempo sync it. Or like I've got an original 70s ADA flanger that is awesome but needs to be fixed. I haven't fixed it yet because I got a plugin that sounds really close, and I just put it on a track, and I don't need to mess with it.
But you're exactly right, and that brings me back to my kind of very black and white, very binary way of looking at things, which is the amount of times when, as you just said, it sounds very close, and it may not sound exactly the same, but it's close. And it's people turning around and going, well, that sounds nothing like my kind of phaser, and you're there going, it doesn't matter. Just because they've decided they're going to model it on that, it doesn't matter whether it sounds exactly the same as that one, because it's like vintage synths. Every vintage synth sounds different. And so when people start saying, oh well, that Jupiter 8 plugin doesn't sound like my Jupiter 8, well no, but your Jupiter 8 doesn't sound like the Jupiter 8 that's next door, because they all sounded a bit different. But the reality is nothing to do with any of that crap. Does it sound good? Yes. There we go. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Sorry, I'm getting annoyed. Look, I'm starting.
No, we like it.
I'm turning into the Incredible Hulk. I'm going to start ripping my shirt off in a minute, and I'm going to turn green.
Alexa likes green. So Harrison Mixbus version 7 out now. If you don't already own it, it's only £80 for version 7. However, if you want Mixbus 32C, which has a whole bunch of extra features, that's about £300. But it's still pretty good value for money. If you own a version of Harrison Mixbus, then the upgrade's something like $19 at the moment, and you can transfer that to a 32C license for about $99, which is still very, very good value for money if that's what you're looking for. But I think, as Ty's mentioned, I've heard this mentioned from a lot of other people, not so good as a digital audio workstation for programming and sequencing, but great for shoving audio through because you get a good sound quality. But make your own minds up on that one. Let's do a couple of quick ones. Not going to hang around on these too long, but I did want to mention that IK Multimedia are finally, at long last, shipping the UNO Synth Pro, which the more I hear, the more I'm emailing my friends at IK saying, where the hell is mine? Because you promised me one. So I'm just waiting for this to arrive any day now, fingers crossed. But I've seen Lupop did a really good video.
I was just going to say, I mean, I wasn't that bothered about this, but again, like so many other synths, in that he's responsible for half of this behind me, really.
Yeah.
After watching his video again, I just think it looks like a great little synth now, and I might
it's a long
actually get
video.
one
It's an
myself.
over an hour long video, but it's a video manual, which is pretty much what he does. But there's a nice long section at the end where he just goes through the presets, and I'm thinking, wow, this is good. This is really good. And it seems I don't want to invoke. It's like Candyman. I don't want to say it 5 times, but it does seem to do paraphonic the way paraphonic is supposed to do. No, Mark, please, Mark, no. So I've yet to. I'm too scared. Literally, I spoke to Mark this afternoon. I was gonna say, so what do you think about the UNO Synth Pro's paraphony thing? And I just thought, no, I haven't got the time. I don't have the time to waste on that argument. But I think, going on what my understanding is on what my interpretation of Mark's interpretation is, I think it does it quite well. I think it does it properly. It's like single articulation on the filters, isn't it? And so it's like you can play the 3 oscillators, but only something, I don't know. It hurts my head.
It's shared envelopes and
I don't know. I saw this demo. Lupop was saying, if you press and hold this note, it goes through the envelope. But if I then press this note, it doesn't. And I think that's what Mark told me it should be like. And if Mark said that, then he's got to be right, hasn't he? We're still. I'm badgering him quite a lot to get him on the show.
We need to get him on the show because it's going to start becoming a drinking game every time he's mentioned.
Yeah. So
I was talking to Mark on the phone the other day.
I was surprised when he joined the group. To be honest, I didn't think he was into
again
anything
badgering
like
him for ages to do that. So anyway, he's.
Well, I love the fact that the entire community was trying to turn Mark and I against one another over the polybrute. I mean, that was amazing. They were literally trying to make us. There was one stage. There was someone on one of the sides going, "Fight, fight, fight!" So
yes, bless him, love him to bits. But yeah, UNO Synth Pro is shipping now. So if you've been waiting for one, get your orders in. The desktop version and the keyboard version, literally the only difference is one's got a proper keyboard, the other one's got the capacitive thing, and the pitch bend and mod wheels are sliders instead of actual stuff. But other than that, everything else is identical. There's a little bit of connectivity differences at the
Which
back.
would you prefer, though?
Me, the keyboard version every day.
Yeah. What about you, Ty?
nah.
No,
Not his thing. No.
not your thing, Chris.
I tell you what. All it is the fact that there's at that kind of price now.
It is expensive.
It's if you're talking about £600, if you start looking new, there's enough around £700. There's enough around £700 that really make you start to think. There's a lot of choice, but also, and I know it's difficult to combine the new secondhand thing, but secondhand now, what you can get for £700, there's a lot of stuff that just. It's
And
just
again, we come back to this comparison with other, 37-note keyboards, and you put this up against a Cobalt 8, and I'm afraid Mode will win pretty much every time in all respects, because that's true polyphony, it's MPE, it's it's got way more going for it internally.
But can I also point out that there's plenty of vintage synths that we now know and love that when they came out, the entire world just kind of went, nah.
Yeah.
And yet now people kill to get them, and so it's not my thing, and it doesn't really appeal. But at the same time, it wouldn't surprise me if skip forward 10 years and people will be killing to try and get hold of these. So it's one of those
very
things.
True. Very true. But anyway, shipping now. So if you are interested in one of those, go and grab one. Let's do. Actually, I'm going to, because we're not going to do like a traditional interview with Ty, and for the reason that he gave at the beginning of the show is that everyone's kind of sick of his face around. We've all heard about Ty. We know what Ty does.
I'm bored with
Ty's bored with Ty.
Yeah.
But I have to ask you about this because, and I know that there's stuff that you probably don't want to talk about on air in a public forum, but I just want to ask you about this from purely a professional perspective. Now, I'm a huge fan. Well, that's probably fans, not probably the right term. I'm
If it's of me, moved. No, keep it. I'm going to go with that. Yeah, you're a huge fan of mine. That's fantastic. Thanks,
I'm a huge
Robbie.
fan of your music, but I was a huge fan of the way your music was used in this recent production by the BBC. Or broadcast over here on the BBC. I think it's on other networks. This Greta Thunberg, A Year to Change the World, and I'm not blowing smoke up the proverbial, but I really loved what you did with this, and I just wanted to kind of ask, how did you find this? Was this an interesting project to work on? Was it just another one that you just churned out? Because that's what you do every day. You get up, have some breakfast, churn out a score, isn't it?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm going to go with that. Yeah, that's what I do. I just go to the loo,
curl one off,
churn out some more shit. There we go. No, it's no, it was a good one. It was a nice one to do. But it was the main reason I did it was I'd taken some time out to try and. Just to take some time out because I kind of got to the 2019 and just thought, do you know what? I worked on there were a couple of big projects at the end of 2019, and I just thought, do you know, I'm not burning myself out, but I just really didn't particularly enjoy these projects and just thought I've never been in a position in my career where I've ever not looked forward to going down to the studio, and on these couple it was just like it was just a pain, and I just thought, do you know what? I'm just going to take some time out. As it turned out, there was this little thing around the corner called pandemic. And so when the whole industry completely changed, and things were changing, and I was sat there going, this is great. I've timed this to perfection because I'm deliberately, consciously taking time out. And there's all these poor composers who are basically suddenly out of work because their projects have stopped and all this kind of thing. And all I was waiting for, I just basically said, I'm going to take off as long as I take off. And, it could have been it. I mean, I could have just gone, that's it, I'm retiring. And that would have been, I wouldn't have had an issue with that. But what I wanted to, when I came back into it, I wanted to come back into a project that was, I don't want to say easy, but it was a nice, easy one coming back into it. Because for me, when you go on holiday, when you're a composer and you go away on holiday for a week or whatever, when you then come back into the studio, although you've only been away for a week, sometimes it's almost like you've been, you almost forget everything about how to switch gear on, never mind do anything. And so having been away for essentially almost 12 months, and I knew that the first project I'd be sitting there going, well, the other thing that didn't help was the studio still wasn't finished.
Right,
so whatever I did was going to have to be done on one keyboard and a laptop on the dining room table. Of course, I chose not to share this with the BBC at the time. And so that's how it was going to be done. It was going to literally be one keyboard, one laptop, and I was going to have to do the entire score on that. This one came along. I'd said no to lots of stuff during last year, and this one was the first one that really appealed. And to be fair, it was an interesting one. It took about 5 months in total to do the full thing, but that involved doing a lot of sketches at the beginning. So I think I produced about an hour and 10 minutes of early sketches that were then used in the edits. The only issue was with it is that due to lots of editorial thing, and I think this is why you're bringing it up, because we had the brief conversation basically went Robbie turning around and going, I really liked what you did on the last episode. And I said, thank you very much. It basically, that whole score, like the whole 1 hour was done in three days, basically. And the reason for that is that there's a lot of stuff I can't go into. I really can't go into. But there was a lot of editorial changes that were made at the last minute. And so on that episode, I was meant to have 1 month. I was meant to have 1 month. And then as changes were being made and problems were occurring within the production on it, it turned into the dub was on Monday at 9, and I got the final film at Saturday at something like 3 a.m.
Oh,
so it's like Saturday at 3 a.m. and the dub was at Monday at 9 a.m. And I hadn't seen the film up until this point. This was the first time I'd really seen the film. So it ended up where, for one of the very few times in my life, because normally I just turn around and go, yeah, I'll take it up the bum. That's fine. I'll do it. That's not a problem. This one, I just really thought, bearing in mind the first 2 episodes I was quite happy with the first 2 episodes. It was really going to suffer if I really tried to do it that quickly. So I basically managed to get myself 3 days. I managed to get an extra day, basically. Mm-hmm. So in those 3 days, I wrote that 1 hour of music for it, and it turned out fine. I mean, I've said this so many times before. Again, me talking the same rubbish all the time, but I basically have 2 heads. I have proper creative head, and I have autopilot head. Mm-hmm. And luckily, what I'd managed to do was on the first 2 episodes, there was a lot of creative head. And by the time it came to the last episode, I could draw on some of that, those themes and whatever. So it was kind of a lot of the creative stuff had already been done. And then for those 3 days, it was literally just painting by numbers. It was autopilot.
Gotcha.
But the nice thing about it is that no one noticed. You know, I had a few people contact me saying how much they liked what I'd done, and no one, nobody contacted me going, yeah, it was all right, sounded a bit rushed. No one did that. No, sounded like you didn't put in much effort. There was none of that. So and
the
believe
spoon
me,
solo in the final scene was a bit weird.
Believe me, I have plenty of friends that would actually quite happily do that, and that's why they're friends. But no, there was none of that. It worked well, and it was a really great production to be involved in. The only hilarious part about it is that at the end, what they did was they kind of did a Zoom call of the people that had been involved in the project, and of course, a lot of the people are involved throughout the entire. I mean, this project would have been ongoing for years because they obviously followed her for 12 months, and all the prep before that. And so there were all these people on this Zoom call. And most of which we'd never met one another, and someone actually said, at the end of the episode, and someone said, it's amazing that all of this entire project was basically done remotely for the last 12 months. So all the editing and directing and the production, it was all done remotely from people's dining room tables. At which point I thought this was the time to actually admit that. The music too was done at the on the dining room table. But as someone said at the time, you can't tell, and that's the biggest that's the biggest compliment. I defy anyone to listen to the score and tell that it was done on just a laptop on the dining room table.
Yeah, no, it was great work. Really, I mean, I enjoyed the content, and the music as always makes it, and. Yeah.
Oh, completely. Yeah. It's but that's always the way. But but no, thanks for even bringing it up, because you know what I'm like about everything that I do. I belittle everything that I've ever done ever in my life. I just write some shit every day. That's all I do. It's fine.
So if you didn't see that, I mean, I don't know about distribution rights around the rest of the world, but if you're here in the UK or you have access to the iPlayer, all 3 episodes are now on the iPlayer. It's the only reason I did it. The reality is that the BBC said it's going to be bought up and shown all around the world, which means I get more royalties and PRS. Indeed. So I just went, that's the only reason I'm doing it. Get me the money. That's all I've got. That's the next CS80 or whatever it is. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or Fairlight.
Oh, I haven't even told you. I know I told you. I did tell you, Robbie, about my recent purchases.
You did. You did.
Let's not go there. Yeah.
No, because we'll be here. We just haven't got the time.
No. Let's not do that. Moving forward.
Indeed. Moving on. Sorry.
Hey, right. A question here from Aaron. If I want to become familiar with Ty's work, where should I start? Where would be a good place, Ty?
Normally bargain bins in garages.
What about 100 vaginas?
100 vaginas, that's always a good place to start. I think, can I just point out there needs to be some context there, otherwise we're going for a whole different audience. No, do you see, this is the thing. Most of the stuff that I do, realistically, is it's written for TV, and it gets published by TV. And so, I mean, there's this figure bandied around that, I mean, I've said before, I've written thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of music, but actually watching them, whether people like it or not, they will have seen my stuff on mainly BBC or Channel 4 programs, because it's all over the place. But actually going anywhere to listen to them, it's a very limited field. I mean, in terms of the kind of stuff I do, the easiest thing to kind of hear the kind of stuff I do is probably the Midge album, which is, you know, although that's actually Midge's songs, it's me all over it, basically. It's me with my my footprint. So that's Midge, or the orchestrated album, that's basically me. But in terms of original stuff, do you know what? Just watch some BBC, and eventually, if you just watch enough of it, there'll be some of my crap on there, and you won't particularly know it's me. But wait for the stuff that you go, oh my god, this isn't very good, is it? That'll be me. That's the stuff. Wait for the poor quality stuff.
Right, let's move on to what have we got here. This was an interesting one. AAS have been putting out some interesting stuff recently, but this one had me slightly perplexed because you'll see why. So this is Multiphonics CV-1, and it's a software modular synthesizer, which retails for $99, although it's currently $79. And I'm sat here thinking, the first thing that literally came into my head was, why would I want this if I can get VCV Rack for free?
Because it sounds good.
Yeah. Is that really? I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
AAS. I mean, I've got a history with AAS in terms of just buying stuff over the years, and their stuff there's something very, the way that it's coded, there's something very good about the way it sounds, and it's always been that way right back from Lounge Lizard. And I mean, they did Tasman, which was a modular system, slightly different to this. It wasn't quite as analog orientated, but then there's ultra analog, and I'm sure that a lot of the programming is crossover from ultra analog, which if you want to get a really good strong sounding virtual analog, you know, kind of VST, it's really good. Their stuff just sounds good, as simple as that.
I suppose.
And
one of the reasons is that it's automatically a plugin, whereas VCV Rack isn't. I think isn't the concept of VCV Rack that you will pay for that functionality. But
yes, so VCV Rack 2 will add plugin capability. Right. Gotcha. It can run its own plugins, and it's a sort of mini DAW in itself. But in version 2, you can pay for the ability to run it within your DAW, which really I'm waiting for.
But Multiphonics does that already.
You can do that with this already.
Yeah,
I did that before. But one thing that I will say about it, it does sound great, but I tried to record some automation in Cubase, you know, just like physically like grabbing cut off and stuff like that, and it didn't take. I don't know why. So something's getting lost there somewhere.
Again, though, I'll tell you, as a company, let them know, because they'll be straight on. They'll be straight on it. Yeah. I can't comment on VC. Is it VCV?
Yeah, VCV.
Yeah, I can't comment because I've never tried. I've got Soft Tubes modular, which sounds good. But I think what we need to remember with all of this is the same way, you know, without bringing back the whole, you know, kind of the 8 voice when it came out, but we all kind of accept that, you know, the GeForce programming on that sounds better than the Cherry Audio. Yeah. But that's not damning the Cherry Audio, because the Cherry Audio is $30 or whatever. And for $30, it's amazing, but it doesn't sound as good as the programming in the, you know, kind of in the OBE. And I think there could well be a similar thing going on. I've never tried the VCV, so I can't comment on the sound quality, but I would just accept that quite often when you're paying decent amounts of money for stuff, you are actually paying for more than just fancier graphics. I mean, ironically, in this, the graphics are actually very basic.
Yes.
But, you know, all I would say is that, you know, kind of AAS, the sound of their stuff right across the board, you know, like String Studio and whatever, they sound great. But
it does sound good.
Yeah, if there is a problem with just contact them, because they are very quick to sort stuff like that out.
Yeah. So with, you know, just a, well, I don't need to come to the defense of VCV rack, but one of the complexities about it is it has a huge free ecosystem, but the main guy that's behind it, Andrew Bell, is, I mean, that guy works like crazy on it. And you have great sounding modules, even the free ones. So, I mean, you got all the mutable instrument stuff in there, and you have either clones or companies providing the firmware for their modules for that. And then you have a lot of companies that are working on their own modules. So it's an entire ecosystem where, you know, designers and coders and stuff are making modules. And some of them are, you know, you pay for just as you would this or SoftTube. And, you know, the thing is, as we talked before, like, what can you make work the best? I've got SoftTube and VCV rack, and SoftTube is a little bit clunky. It's not quick to move around on, but it sounds good. So I use it for some things like that. And then with the integration with their other synths, like the Model 72 and 84, that makes it a more valuable prospect. Plus, they've also got some of the mutable instruments and stuff in there as well. But, the VCV rack, though.
Yeah, please don't think I'm not being damning on VCV, because I've never tried it. So yeah.
And that's why I was responding, because it is a little more complex situation versus like your average free plugin, which, you know, if it works, great. If it doesn't, you haven't paid anything for it. And with you know, somebody that's putting a lot of time into something like you know, this modular system, that's great. And I think, you know, I was just going to say that VCV rack has those same qualities as well. And it'll be interesting to see how these compare. The more and more time goes on, that people are spending a lot more time on the virtual modules, you know.
That filter's incredible, by the way. I can't pronounce it, but
Object filter.
Object. Try there. If you haven't tried it, one of the best delays you'll ever buy is Object Delay, which again AAS do. It's one of those that kind of seems to have passed people by. But if you want an incredibly creative delay, Object Delay by AAS. Again, on the Midge album, it's all over the Midge album, everywhere. Right. It's fantastic delay.
Yeah, it sounds great, that filter, and the way that you can select like different, you know, characteristics, and it just transforms the sound totally. I really like it. I think there's a great selection of presets that they've put in there as well. They're all categorized. There's one category that's called unconventional, and that sounds like either I've programmed them or
bad, eh?
It's what they came up with when they first got the software, because I don't think there's a sound in there that you could use for anything, but like it's interesting to have a browse through. It's dead interesting to they have like patch comments. There's a little module that you can put comments in, and so like you load a patch in and you see all the routing and everything, and then you'll patch comments at, like, explaining the best way of using the sound and the idea behind the sound. And I think it's really good. I know there's a cost to it as opposed to the VCV one, but
but it's not much, is it? I mean, even at full price, it's only $99, which I know I don't want to be flippant, but I could
definitely see some use out of this. And that Fog of War preset is worth £79 on its own.
Well, the other thing too is, like, if you're wanting to experiment with Eurorack and you're not sure if you want, because the buy-in on it is expensive. I mean, you have to have the case and the power supply, and then you got to have all the, you know, extra modules that make the modules that you really want do the stuff.
Yeah, I
and
know.
The buy-in is,
I know. Yeah, I've been. As I said, I've been there this week. I'm
but
learning.
It is a huge buy-in, and so for, you know, $100 for this, or, you know, a couple $100 for SoftTube collection stuff, or, you know, start getting into VCV rack, at least you can find out whether it's going to work for you or not. If nothing else, get the free version of VCV rack and go, do I really like doing things like this? Do I like hooking up, triggers and gates and CV voltage? And if you do, then you're going to love the hardware and it's going to be even better. And if you don't, then that's a safe way out of it real quick.
I like the idea of the modular thing. I just don't want to repatch it every time I want to get the sound back. So this for me is a nice, it's a nice safe option.
But what I've learned is literally in my as I said, my accidental kind of route down this hole, is that it's almost, there's an acceptance of it being different. And the reason it's the same because there's a System 55 over there that basically had the same patch on it for forever and a day when I came up with it, because I just couldn't every time I was like, I need to do no I'll leave it, otherwise I'll lose it. And so, but what I've now accepted is whatever I'm going to do on this little Eurorack system, I'm accepting that it is what it is now. I'm going to burn the audio and that's it. And I'm accepting I will never come back to this. No matter how many photos you take and how many notes you make, it's never going to be back again. And it's almost that acceptance that once you do that, I think it's almost like seeing it as a different... To be fair, it's like going back to, as we're talking about the whole vintage way of recording, it's going back to the old days. It's going back to that of having no recall, having none of that. And it's just, you live for the moment, it does what it does, you do what you have to do with it, you unplug it all, and you're back to square one. And I think there's something to be said for that. I do think there's something to be said for that. But not on a day-to-day basis, otherwise it'd drive me mad. But
I still don't get the allure. I just don't.
Oh, I understand why people wouldn't, because that's been me for the last... You've heard some of the comments that I've made about Eurorack, about, I mean, literally people should be shot. I mean, I've been fairly severe about, it's not for me. And the reality is, I wish I'd had this conversation with Cryss about 3 years ago, because I wouldn't be in the position now where I've kind of spent the money going, I should have listened to Cryss, I should have got into something. I can totally understand why people don't find the allure, because I have never found the allure. But I do have to say, in the last few days, having these very bespoke, these very individual modules in, there's been a certain something about the random nature of, hang on a minute, if I plug that into there, and all of a sudden it's that kind of, ooh, which on hardware synths that we know like the back of our hand, even something great like, kind of the Moog 1 or, something quite deep, there's not that many times where you do something and you really don't have a clue what the end result's going to be. Because you have a knowledge that, okay, if I route this to that, I kind of know. And you might get the odd moment where it's unexpected, but it doesn't happen that often. And I think the one allure of Eurorack is that kind of unpredictability and that not quite knowing is it's just a regular thing that keeps happening and happening and happening. And I think I can understand the appeal of that.
Hey, and if nothing else, you spend the money on the hardware and you've got it set up and there's lots of cabling and lots of blinky lights. Anytime someone comes into your studio, they're just going to be impressed with it. They see something else in your studio, some keyboard that your Yamaha behind you, and maybe they don't know a whole lot about it. They're not going to be that impressed, but they see the modular stuff and they're like, "Wow, what does that do?"
Oh, can I point out that anytime anyone that doesn't really know comes into the studio and sees the CS80, they just go, "Oh, an organ."
Yes.
So, yeah. The
So you picked that up from the charity shop, 50 quid.
Was that a garage sale? And, So the moment you try and explain that one. So, yeah, you're right from that point. At the end of the day, it's got blinky lights and sliders, and we're only men, and, it's always going to happen. So.
I have to admit, there was I saw somebody on the show, and they had all of their stuff switched on, and clearly a lot of it has a demo mode or a sleep mode where the lights just come on and flash in patterns.
Doing it now, look.
Oh yeah, and so I thought I turned all of this stuff on, and all the stuff over there, and I honestly couldn't see anything because it's just like little green LCD panels. There's no lights on any of this stuff. So I don't bother. I save my electricity. I don't have any flashy blinky lights. There you go.
There's an argument for leaving your gear on all the time, isn't there?
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally. It used to be the only time I would ever switch the gear off when went on holiday. That was literally it.
Yeah.
The gear stays on constantly. I'm not going to tell you what the electricity bill is, but
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, I can
Mine's
tell
on
you,
a
like
lot,
if
well, put it like this: we once had when they come to install solar panels.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to do a thing about installing solar panels, and this woman was here for ages going through the whole lot, and the woman turned around and said, "Oh, that's great, yeah, I'm sure that's absolutely fine, and you can make some money back and all this kind of thing." And she said, "So could I look at your bill for the I think it was for the month?" And I showed it for the month, and the woman, her eyes just said, she turned and went, "No, not the annual bill. Can we have it for the month?" And I turned and went, "No, that is for the month." And she got the fold with all the stuff and just closed the fold and just turned and went, "There's no point you having any solar. It won't even touch the surface. Forget it. You'll never make the money back." So, yeah.
Oh, dear.
So
Yeah, I'm kind of I have to turn stuff off because I'm paranoid. Even though I've got surge protection and all that, I'm just paranoid that things would just either overheat, catch fire, get fried from a spike in the because whenever we have a storm here in the middle of nowhere, the power does tend to go off. And there's the one benefit of being medically reliant on power, which I am. My living in this village guarantees my village gets switched back on first because I have a medical condition that relies on electricity.
Is that why every time they turn around and when I've called before and they say, "Do you have any condition that would mean you rely on electricity?"
Yeah.
Does that?
Yeah.
I'm going to say yes in future. Sod
So
that.
just tell them you got obstructive sleep apnea and that you have a machine overnight and you've got to have it. And then you go priority, and it's not just you; it's whoever's on your circuit. So if you're in a village or a small community, if everyone's on the same circuit, they all benefit from that. So I remind the locals.
What you're really saying is we're only thinking of the community. Really, we're in no way being selfish about this.
No.
This is all for the greater good. Okay,
Of course.
as long as I know that, that's fine.
That's how I said it. But yes, no, I don't. I've actually got, because I rent this property. The landlord has to have an electrical inspection every year. And we haven't had one for ages, and so they're coming to do one next week. And I'm dreading them coming into this room because I've got multi adapters that are stacked full. And I do make sure that they're not overloaded. And I do check all the ratings and everything. But he's going to have a field day when he comes in here. I have no idea what he's going to say. He'll probably get me kicked out of the place, but. Because I'm not like you, Mr. Unwin, that has to have it piped in off the street, especially.
Well, don't even go there. I must have told you this. So at the moment. So I think I said to Robbie, and I don't know if anyone else knows, but so there's basically going to be 3 rooms. I've got 2 at the moment, and there's a third one being built. And so this is the one I'm in at the moment is the minimal room. And so this is the minimal one. This is without all the
CS80 in the back.
Yeah, I know. Don't.
Yeah,
but this is the minimal room, and so there's this isn't where all the gear is. This is literally the minimal room, and there's 130 plug sockets in the minimal room. Oh, wow. So when the synth room is in, I can't even start to begin to think how many plug sockets are going to have to go in there. This isn't the synth room. This is the one without all the synths in. It's just got a smattering of It's bonkers. It's absolutely it's bonkers. Of course it is.
Dear.
We need a tour of this.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
Well, do you know? Well, I've already said to Robbie, you're more than welcome. I mean, I do have to say that when the third room is done, it is ridiculous, but in a kind of very. It's like it's our dream kind of, and I'm just fortunate enough to be partaking in that dream. But
well, perhaps we could have a walk through that room when you're done, and then afterwards we can have you lecture us on using what you have.
Yes, exactly.
I'll be keeping an eye open for any Behringer stuff in there.
Oh God, it's all Behringer. I tell you. I mean, it's all just a facade. You know this.
That's a DS80, not a CS80. Is that right?
It is. This is just a prototype.
You've been beta testing
It's a prototype. I've had this for months. No, it's don't. That's why I don't go too close, because if you go too close, you'll see the logo. So that's
That's the soft focus.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, gotcha. Oh well, that's AAS. We kind of went off on one there.
Sorry.
That's the new product from them, which is 99, but normally 79. Normally 99, currently 79 on offer. Looks rather good. I'll leave that up to you. Let's talk about. We're going to bunch this stuff up. I don't know how I'm going to do this because I can't bunch screens together on here. But there have been a number of effects, updates and releases just this week alone. One of which is top of Ty's list. He told us before we came on air that he's been desperate for another shimmer effect.
I love it. Love shimmer verb, shimmer delays. Love it. Absolutely love it. It's my favourite thing. Yeah.
So then you'll like this new one from Nembrini.
Amazing.
Which is the shimmer delay ambient machine, which is a mere $29 at the moment. But is this the one that is only iOS, Cryss? Is this iOS only?
No. It's
So
a
it's-
plugin. So Nembrini does a lot of plugins like guitar amplifiers. They do work for, like I think all of the Plugin Alliance guitar amps are done by Nembrini.
Right, okay. So we've got a brief demo here. Let's just quickly go through this. I wish this is one thing I'm going to write an email to Streamyard to make this thing a little bit more intuitive. Right, here we go. Nembrini shimmer delay ambient machine, and this. Here we go.
Introducing 11th gen Intel Core processors. Collaborate confidently
Is it me?
with Wi-Fi 6, thanks to the world's best.
Is it just me, or are YouTube adverts becoming hugely intrusive in the last week or so?
All I can say is at least it's not the drip plugin. That's all.
Oh, God, yeah! Every flipping video this week. Good grief. Yeah. Anyway, back to this. And it all goes quiet. There we go. Do you know, it does what shimmers do, doesn't it? I don't know why we're bothering, really. What's so special about this one? Anyone? Tumbleweed.
Cryss,
Right.
Cryss, you're our effects specialist.
Yeah, I mean,
I liked Ben's comment though. It was,
do we need
struggling
another
trying to find
shimmer?
something good.
I will say, as far as all of the shimmer stuff goes, there is a tendency for people to talk about it as all the same sounding and that kind of stuff.
They're
But
not.
I do hear
there are very.
Yeah, I
different.
do hear a pretty big difference in how they, and also like how it's the shimmer's implemented in either, in the delay line, whether it's a delay or reverb, how the shimmer comes into it, if it's more of an additive thing later on where like the Valhalla, or if it's a little more immediate, if it's earlier in the chain, like the Eventide stuff, it can sound quite different. I like the Irid shimmer because it's a little grungy and not really beautiful sounding. It's dark and haunting. And then I love, like this, the Valhalla or the Strymon stuff. For hardware, Strymon does a really musical shimmer, delay, or reverb. It's the thing, like the Eventide stuff, it just sounds like the kind of the cliched sound, but there's a way about it that you can do it where it is musical.
Talking
In
of
fact-
Valhalla, they've updated as well some of their stuff. Sorry.
The Valhalla effects are superb. Oh, yeah, they're superb, aren't they? They're really, really good.
Yeah, so the delay already has pitch shifting in it, so you can do shimmer if you want to on the Valhalla delay, but this adds two modes to it. One is a very like clear, like they've taken the filters out of the delay path and have there's still a filter at the very end, so right before it would mix with the dry signal. You still have some control over there, but the delay loop where it's feeding back has no filtering on it, and so that's that top mode, the quartz. And then this other orange mode there is the phaser DDL, which is using phase shifting in the feedback loop, and it sounds pretty cool. And then one of the tricks you can do with it is you set it to a single delay, turn the delay time and the feedback all the way down, and now you have a Valhalla phase shifter to play around with.
Okay. Yeah, so interesting updates, and they're free updates to those that already own what are incredibly affordable effects. A lot, in terms of bang for buck. Talking of popular shimmery, verby type things, one of my favourites is UVI Spark Verb, which I use the plugin on my desktop, but it's now available as an iOS plugin. So it seems like the iOS is the format du jour. Just trying to find the goddamn page here. Here it is. So Spark Verb has been around. It's $129 for the plugin, but for the App Store version, I think it is a mere $19.99, and it works on iPhone, iPad, and yeah. So if you're in the market for an iOS-based version of Spark Verb, there it is, and I really like this.
Do you know anyone that actually really seriously uses iOS plugins? Because there are some that obviously have migrated, and there are some really good ones that have moved over to iPad and iPhone, all that kind of thing. And I just don't know. Everyone does what I've done over the years, which is you buy it and you sit there and you mess with it for 5 minutes and go, wow, this is amazing. And then you never, ever use it in any constructive way. But I'm seriously, I'm not saying it from a condemning point of view. I'm asking, does anyone know anyone who seriously uses iPads in a genuine constructive way? Because I don't.
No, I mean I'm a member of a Facebook group called iPad Musicians, and I only joined that very early on because I had a slightly vested interest in it working with the Fairlight iOS app. And once that had kind of drifted away and wasn't really a thing anymore, but I keep seeing people coming up, with posts on there and getting all moist about the gusset about, some, plugin or sequencer. And when I look at it, I think I just couldn't work with that. And I got very frustrated with using it. I thought it was like going to be the next big thing, and it really wasn't. And
we all thought that thought that everyone wanted touch screens for everything. We all thought that, and then when we started using touch screens for everything, we're all going, God, I hate touch screens. I want sliders.
We want control surfaces.
That's it. So
I think we were learning how we could make the best use of touchscreens, because I've got synths with touchscreens that work really, really well, but as an iPad, I just don't know if it's. I'm sure there's people making really great music with them. Gorillaz didn't they make a whole album?
But you see, this is what I'm saying. They did, but it feels like it was almost a novelty thing. It's almost that you can get the publicity going. We made the whole album on an iPad, which is totally justifiable, and that's absolutely fair enough. But my argument would never be that. My argument would be, okay, so when it came to the next album, were you still doing that on an iPad? Now that you've got the publicity and you're known for the band that did it on an iPad, are you doing the second one, or no? You're not. No, you're not doing that, are you? It's that kind of thing. From a novelty point of view, I get it, but outside of that, from a genuine productive thing, I just think it's why would you do that? And again, I could be missing it. Don't get me wrong, I've got a few iPads and I use them mainly for kind of ambient textural granular stuff. There's some fantastic granular programs on there that it's fantastic. It's brilliant. And you're thinking, I don't really know any other way you could have this combination apart from using touchscreen. That's great. But that's not using it as a reverb unit or a great delay or a sequencer or that kind of thing. That's when I start to go, I understand why this works, but I don't understand how some things like having a great reverb on there. But I don't get it. I just don't get it.
It depends on Yeah, I mean, it depends on where you're doing your recording. So for those of us that are using a computer and using a DAW on our computer, then the iPad has to be some sort of hardware unit that we integrate into our system, and it doesn't have very good outputs. So, I tried it the other day with my wife's little iPad mini, which was a nightmare because it was very old and the touchscreen's so small on it, it's a mini, that I was trying to adjust the synthesizer and it was very difficult to do that. Now, I was having a conversation with Synth and he's got the big 12.9 iPad Pro, which would be a hell of a lot easier and have a lot more power to do those kind of things. But the ins and outs are the things. So I see a lot of people using the DAW. Yeah, in fact, he just said he uses the DAW on the iPad. I don't want to do that. Like I personally, I couldn't. I would much rather be on the computer with a trackpad. That's a lot easier for me to use. But then when you start thinking if it's on the iPad itself, well, then you're going to need effects in that system and plugins and that kind of stuff to use it. But if I can't imagine using it, I haven't really seen anybody do it as the way you described, like, oh, I'm recording, now I'm going to pipe the sound out into the audio into an iPad, run it through this thing, and then pipe it back into the computer. That seems like it would be kind of a pain in the butt to do.
The only
do you think this will all change?
Because they're cheaper.
Yeah, but do you think this will all change with the M1?
No, you see, I don't think the processing power has anything to do with it. I really don't think it's the processing power. I think it's just...
there's this theory, isn't there, that Apple are moving towards a single platform that will be on the the Mac and the iPad and because Mac OS and iOS or iPad OS are getting closer and closer and closer in terms of the functionality. Now we're going to have this common platform, the M1. So we've got iPads with M1s, we've got MacBooks and iMacs with M1. Is there going to be a time when everything will work on everything, and maybe there is a good argument for having an iPad as a tool because it can be an extension of or a remote version of what you've got at the moment, and that it will all fit in. So you can, I don't know.
I'd say, no, you could be totally right, but I'm seeing that as an episode of Tomorrow's World where they predict there's going to be robots cleaning the house for you. I think it's one of those. It's a 1972 episode of Tomorrow's World where it's great in theory and we know it's going to happen, and then you skip forward 10 years.
Kieran Prendeville with his
exactly. And then you skip forward 10 years and everyone's kind of gone, whatever happened to those robots that clean the house?
I want my robot cleaners.
Was that far back enough that they were called Robits?
Robots. Yeah.
Oh my god.
So anyway, UVI Spark Verb now available on iOS if you use it or not. And then the other one that we saw that might be worth mentioning, we don't seem to hear so much of this guy anymore, and I don't know whether that's a good thing. We used to hear his name everywhere, but Rob Papen seems, I don't know, is it just me? He seems to have gone kind of very quiet of late. But he's got a new plugin, and it's a delay plugin called Del Sane. Currently on offer at €29, $29. I'll be honest, I didn't get a chance to have a look at this one because it just didn't really appeal. But did anybody take a listen?
I watched the videos. I mean, I really like Rob's stuff, I have to say. I mean, I've got the latest Explorer, and he's produced some fantastic synths over the years. Effects wise, I always find his effects they're fine, and they're okay, and I like the way that he's kind of gone a bit left field with this, but it's kind of gone left field, and it's okay. I mean, it just seems, everything about it seems fine, and I think for $29 it's probably good value, and it's great. But again, when we were talking about AAS, you start looking at creative delays and things like the object delay is this kind of thing, in that it's a normal delay but with a lot more creative slant, and I love that. Whereas this one, and again, I didn't buy it, I haven't downloaded it, I've only watched the videos, but it seemed like it was quite a traditional delay with a few bells and whistles with extra modulation and filtering going on, and it didn't really.
That was kind of my take on it too. Like it's a basic solid delay, and I think the appeal of it would be that it's you would slide it in for your creative delay.
But the argument is there are better creative delays. That's what I would say personally. But I love Rob's stuff, so it's hard for me to,
Well, there you go. That was a kind of quick. Oh, hang on. There you go. Come back again. Yay! I'll get the hang of this one day. That was a quick kind of rush through of some effects, delays, and shimmer verbs and reverbs and stuff. So go and test them and see if you like if that sort of thing floats your boat. We've got a competition competition winners to announce, and we've drawn 3 winners for this competition to win one copy or one of 3 copies of Dominic Hawkins, or aka Mr. Wiggly, his Incinerator plugin, which is great fun. We love it. I actually spent a lot of my day today in between editing subtitles on a video, talking with Dom in his Discord chat room. And I think, do you think we should have a Discord server? I don't know. It seems to be the thing that what kids do nowadays. No,
Don't even know what it is.
I kind of lost a lot of time talking with Dom and a whole bunch of people in there. Yeah, it's interesting. Keep the
I'm not the only
going.
one. I was just there keeping a straight face going, yeah, Discord. What?
Well, I've got no idea what he's on about.
No, it's a chatty thing.
It's kind of a chatty, you can talk and listen and all sorts of things.
I'm young enough to know what it is and old enough to not like it.
Yeah. Get off my lawn. Right, so we asked people to answer a technical question about Mr. Wiggly's Incinerator, which was, the question was, how many different models of incinerator and speaker combos are there in the plugin? And the correct answer was 5, and everybody got it right. And then, of course, we did the good old-fashioned tiebreaker question, which was, where was it now? I've lost it. Incinerator would light up my mixes because... And we had a bunch of entries, and I will read out the winners. We have Andy Dixon, Godric Wilkie, and Native VS, or Robert Schusler. I get it correct. So Godric, Robert, Andy, congratulations. You've each won a copy of Incinerator, and we will get that sorted out. We'll get Dom to sort out the stuff there. But it is a cracking little plugin, and congratulations to everyone that won. Thank you to everyone that entered, and hopefully we'll have some more stuff to give away fairly soon. But yeah, there you go. So those those names again: Andy Dixon, Godric Wilkie, and Robert Schusler, aka Native VS. So you have all won a copy of Incinerator. Congratulations, well done. Yay. And I think there was a couple of things that these weren't on the list. I'm just going to throw these in there because I thought they were interesting. Kodamo, who I'm a big fan of with the Essence FM, dropped version 5 of their OS just yesterday, and they even found there was a bug found in it, and it was fixed within an hour. It was great. It was fantastic.
Nice.
This is nimble.
Well
That is good. Yeah.
But so Kodamo, let's have a look. Firmware, it's 5.0 is the version number, and it's adding. This is what I like when you see a firmware update where the feature additions or the feature enhancements and UI improvements outweigh the bug fixes. Obviously, bug fixes are important, but they're throwing in lots of new stuff. So there's lots of extra support for the USB ports on the front. You can actually now use a USB mouse to control the screen, so that's really good. There's screenshotting. You can do a screenshot, which is really good if you're doing reviews, such as I. You just do that. The shimmer effect has been improved. It was a good shimmer effect, but it was slightly noisy in some respects. So they fixed all that. Phase shifting for waveforms, lots of MIDI sync improvements, LFO improvements. A lot of these improvements, not all of them, but a lot of them have been inspired by one of our upcoming guests, Manny Fernandez, who's bought one of these the same time as we did. And do you know, look, I've just noticed the firmware's actually been upgraded again since this afternoon.
Wow.
We're now at E, so they're obviously they're just jumping on these things and fixing them, which is good, but it's annoying because you're never quite sure if you've got the latest one. But anyway, lots of good stuff there. So if you're lucky to be a Kodamo Essence FM owner, version 5 firmware is out now. It's free to all existing owners. And they've also done this really good thing where there's a backup feature in there now, so you can back up your entire system. So should you mess things up, you can just restore your system at any time. But they've also provided the factory backup. So if you want to go back to that, maybe you're selling it or something, you don't want to share your sounds, that's all there. So that's all included. And so that's...
I had a thought, we were talking about how Spitfire just, they capture the very intricate, intimate, imperfect sound. So we got to get them to make a shimmer reverb, and then the trick is that it's going to be imperfect, and the octave up shimmer will be like 20 cents flat.
I think you're confusing the word imperfect with crap there. I think it's an easy mistake to make. But
I just want to get this one in because I promised him I would, because he doesn't do a lot of his own self-promotion, and I think he should. There's a gentleman that frequents our group called Keith McHard, and Keith has been around in the game for a long, long while. He's got a stupid collection of equipment, and he's done a lot of stuff. But one of the things he does do is something that, you know, he looks after old synthesizers that don't get much love or are horribly misunderstood, and one of those is the Yamaha CS6X, which I bought one. I'd been looking for one for ages, and I bought one last year. Was it last year or the year before? I can't remember. I think it was last year, because it was during the pandemic. We had to meet in a car park somewhere. But he has produced two what he calls Rebrains. So basically, he was disillusioned with the factory sounds and the factory programs, and went in and literally created a whole brand new factory sound set of his own liking, with lots of new stuff in there. And I just wanted to share that with you guys, because there's some really good sounds in here. So let's gotta love a nice little piano. There we go. Anyway, you kind of get the idea. There's lots of stuff in there. It's a complete rewrite of the internals. So you just load it through the old-fashioned SD card, not those like the standard one, but remember the big ones, SDCs. Okay. Anyway, £33, and you can literally kind of reprogram your CS6X. It's a kind of very underappreciated. Anyone else got CS6X? Anyone in the chat room? Anyone in the show? No. No, I always promised myself one, because I had the CS1X. It was one of my first kind of proper keyboard synthesizers in the 90s.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, shut up. It was affordable, and it was blue, and it had angles, and it looked like the AM1X, but was
yeah,
a
so
lot
buy
cheaper.
the AM1X, which is still
I couldn't
brilliant.
afford it back then. Yeah, I couldn't afford it back then. Anyway, I sold it to my friend who still has it in Northern Ireland, and I think, I really kind of like that, because it was crap, but in a nice way, in my opinion. But I always I thought, if I get rid of it, I'll get myself a CS6X, because that's kind of, it's done properly and it's expandable. You can put the sampling boards in, and you can put the VL board in, so you can get the physical modelling in there as well.
Right, yeah.
Much more kind of capable machine, and lots more controls and better filters and everything on there. And I picked one up last year, second hand, and it really is a great, it's one of those things that you can get lost in it, because it's got all the arpeggiations, and it's got the phrase looper, and you can just kind of get really lost in that one synth. But Keith's programs kind of move it away from the dance-oriented market that it was aimed at. So a lot of the sounds you get in there are less trancey, techno-y type things. They're more traditionals and stuff.
There's a lot to be said, and I think people kind of skip over that kind of that late 90s, early 2000s kind of synths now, because they're not in and they're not trendy. But I think people need to remember that, as much as FM is current now and trendy and whatever, I mean, skip back to the kind of the 90s or early 2000s, and you couldn't give away DX7s.
No.
And so these things go through in the same way that you couldn't give away analog gear in the mid to late 80s. And I think people forgetting that there was a lot of really great synths. I mean, mainly sampling and synthesis. And it was, but there was some really good stuff that I'm not saying is forgotten about, but it's just not trendy. And I think now would be a good time, anyone that's serious, to start picking some of this stuff up, because this is the stuff that's cheap now.
Yeah.
And if you've got anything about you and know some basic synthesis skills, you can get some fantastic sounds out of these things.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, it seems like it would behoove like some of these companies that have the resources to do this to take the digital synths and put them into plugins. I mean, it has started, like Korg's got the Wave State and the M1 and things like that, but
Triton,
come on, Roland, and Yamaha, and maybe Yamaha's the one that's behind Roland and Korg on this, because they've at least started. But yeah, there's a whole lot that they could do probably fairly easily and get them out, and so that we can all enjoy those sounds again.
I predict physical modeling will be the next big
God,
thing.
I mean, look, I've been saying this for absolutely years. I mean, physical modeling was one of those things that came and went and was never fully explored.
Yeah.
And physical modeling has got so much going for it. Absolutely so much. But I mean, I know, go and check out String Studio if you want physical modeling. Again, AAS. But they've got String Studio, which is physical modeling. But, some physical modeling stuff is incredible. Actually, the other day I've got a Z1 that I don't really play that much, and when I was moving stuff around the studio, I had to move it. And one of those things that when you're changing stuff around, you kind of pick it up and you think, I should just put that over there, but I might just plug it in for 10 minutes just to, And that was it. I was lost for a good 3 or 4 hours just going, Christ, I'd forgot how good this is.
Yeah. I picked my one up last year at the same time as the CS6X. I got it as a deal, twofer. And Ben's got one there as well. And they are cracking machines.
Absolutely. Really, and yet, look, whatever happened to all of that. I mean, I know a lot of it got used in the Oasis and obviously then onto the Kronos and things. But yeah, physical modelling, there's a lot still to be discovered with that. Absolutely. So
Yamaha need to bring back their VLs and VPs.
I've got a VL one.
I've
got. Sorry, shut up. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, make sure it's on and warmed up when I come over.
Okay, sorry.
I want to play with that one.
Okay.
Wagoo's actually said here, this is one that escaped me. I was almost going to buy this, the Technics WSA one, and the only thing that stopped me from buying this, because do you remember when you used to buy Sand on Sand magazine, you get the turnkey insert with the catalogue and their monthly deals. And one month they were obviously clearing them out because they'd stopped making them or they weren't selling. They were knocking them out for something stupid like £450 or £500. And I saw this and I read the spec, and the spec looked amazing. It's got this kind of modelling stuff. It's not quite the same as what the Z1 does, but it's apparently really good. What stopped me from buying it? It's pure gear snobbery because of the name Technics. I thought Technics just make home organs, so I can't be seen with something with the name Technics on, because it'll just be And this was big mistake, because those go for stupid money now.
Well, I've got the rack mount, so I bought the rack mount, and it's one of those that you know straight away that in years to come this will be looked on and searched for long and hard, and it's going that way because the prices on them are just going up and up and up. Are they amazing? No. Are they slightly different and slightly left field? And can you get, the main thing is, from my point of view, is the question is always, can I get sounds out of these things that I can't get elsewhere? And there are certain things that the WSA1R does that I can't think of anywhere else that I could get that kind of timbre, because it's, as you say, it's not full on physical modeling. No. It's kind of cross between sample synthesis and physical modeling. I think the best story about it from my point of view, though, when I managed to get one, I was searching and I managed to find one, and when I plugged it in, there was something wrong with it, and I later found out what it was, that the battery had gone flat. Right. And one of the consequences of the battery going flat was it just produced random noise. And this random noise was absolutely amazing. So I just recorded hours of this random noise, and depending on which note you would feed it, it would do a whole new load of cross modulation or whatever. Wow. So I've got hours and hours recording of this WSA. Then I changed the battery and actually just went, oh yeah, it's all right. but yeah. So excellent. You can check that out when you come over as well. Yeah, it's
definitely. Yeah.
Anyway,
I kicked myself. Anyway, that's about it. That's pretty much everything that we had on the list. So thank you ever so much for all your contributions. Thanks to everyone in the chat room as well for your ongoing discussions and contributions. It's been most interesting trying to keep an eye on all of that. Shall we mention the latest booking that we've got? Are we happy to do that?
Yeah. I am.
Okay. Well, let's
I
go
don't know
through.
who it is, so I'm going to go. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll repeat our guest lineup for the next. This is effectively the next 2 months. Okay. So next week we've got Dave Spears. So we're
git.
Yeah. But we're looking forward to speaking to him. So that's next week, May 7th. May 14th, we've got John Bickle, who is the VP of Sales of Modal Electronics, but has been around. He's a right slapper. He's worked for pretty much everyone and has got some tales to tell. So I'm really looking forward to getting John on the show. It took a bit of persuading,
been around.
I can tell you.
He's been around so much, he might have caught a few things too.
Oh,
so we ought to be careful.
Absolutely. Have you seen his face? Yeah. May 21st, we've got Michael Oakley, who I think is probably our first kind of pop star guest. Whose new album, Odyssey, was announced today and is coming out on May 13th. So we've got him on like the week after. And we were very lucky. He was very generous and sent us like a pre-release.
I didn't know if we were allowed to talk about that.
Yeah, well, we've heard it. We haven't got it. We've heard it, and it's top-notch stuff. If you don't know Michael Oakley, he's on the new Retrowave label, and this I think is his third studio album. He's a Scottish guy, Glaswegian, but don't hold that against him. And he now lives out in Canada, I think, Toronto. But yeah, he's...
Well, then, then we got to say again, don't hold that against him.
True, yeah, absolutely. So he's May 21st. May 28th, we have got John Drake, also known as Suit and Tie Guy. So we've got him, we were talking about his sonic creations and is it Nobcon and all of that stuff that he's involved with. So that's the month of May. June, it gets better. So June 4th, we've got Dr. Manny Fernandez, friend of the show, FM programmer extraordinaire, has done everything from the DX7 right through to Montage, Essence FM, all of that kind of stuff. So we've managed to hook him on June the 4th because he's a very busy man. June the 11th, we're not quite sure. We don't know if there's going to be a live show or not because of various things, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. June 18th, we've got Roger Lyons. If you don't know the name Roger Lyons, you'll know of the bands that he's worked with. He's been the keyboard tech for New Order, Kaiser Chiefs. He's worked at Strawberry Studios. He's got an amazing collection of gear, and he's on the show on June 18th. So hopefully lots of good, great kind of backstage stories of sorting out keyboards for the likes of Gillian, and the rest of the people that he's worked with.
And Alt J he's worked with.
And Alt J, yes, absolutely.
For the
June 25th, really, I'm so much looking forward to this, and I know Ty will look forward to this one as well. We've managed to get Kent Spong as a guest. So
my mate Kent.
Yeah, so
that'll be hilarious.
It will, and super excited to have Kent join us. He's been in the chat room today as well. So Kent's on with us June 25th. And if I had a drum, I would roll it. Our next guest after that on July 2nd, which was just confirmed just the other day, and I'm proper kind of big fan of this guy. We have got the one and the only Fairlight Master himself, Mr. JJ Exarlic of Art of Noise, on this show live on July 2nd.
Talking about the Casio SK1.
Yes, absolutely. So get your Independence. No, is it Independence Day? July 4th. Yeah, get your July 4th weekend off to a cracking start.
Wow.
With the Art of Noises. He's not actually Art of Noise. It's kind of because they're not allowed to use the name. But JJ Exarlic, who has who's programmed and played for and produced Pet Shop Boys, yes, Art of Noise, Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
No. Kiss Me by Stephen Tintin Duffy, which is the absolute ultimate. Don't even go there, otherwise I won't be able to walk out of this room without being a tripod. It's honestly, it's the ultimate of the ultimate. Kiss Me by Stephen Tintin Duffy. That's me when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Oh, can we talk? Can I come on and just talk to him about that and nothing else?
Of course you can. Yeah. Of course you can. Yeah. But yeah, I've got loads of questions for JJ, and I'm just so excited. I've known him for a while, and I thought I'll just, put it out there and see what he says. And he literally came back straight and says, "Yeah, I'll come and do that. When do you want me?" I was like, "Yeah, great, fantastic."
Fantastic.
Yeah, July 2nd. So if you have any questions for JJ and his more than illustrious career, whether it's Art of Noise or working with Malcolm McLaren on Duck Rock, which is one of the greatest albums of all time, Art of Noise, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Pet Shop Boys he did stuff with, loads of programming and production opportunities he produced. Crikey.
Stephen Tintin Duffy as well.
And Stephen July 2nd, JJ Exilic. Fantastic. So we're just going from strength to strength. We've got a lot to follow there. So, and thanks to everyone that's been involved in booking and contacting these people and working the.
Can I just say from the outside looking in that well done to you guys. Brilliant show. The way that it's going from strength to strength is fantastic, and the whole thing. We all know that this whole community. God, this is where I do the. I should have some Rachmaninoff playing in the background and get a bit tearful, but we all know that it is all a great community, and there's this and the Sonic State guys and Gazzy's shows and Mark Zaffin and obviously what Jamie was doing with Geosynths and all this kind of thing. It's a great community. It's an absolute brilliant community, and everyone feels like they know everyone else, even though it's just through a screen or a lens and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But genuinely, what you guys are doing is absolutely brilliant, and so hats off to you from the outside in. Well done. It's fantastic. So,
appreciate it. Thank you for being a part of it.
Exactly.
Oh, I do nothing. I just sit on my ass and just talk.
No, seriously, you bring numbers in. If you just sat on your ass, you bring numbers in. But no, that's
if you haven't noticed, that's what we do too. Sit on our ass and talk crap.
Oh God, yeah. Ben Breslin in the chat room has just said would love to see Mark Reeder on the show. So would I. And it just so happens that I feel like I'm like dropping names here, but Mark and I are good friends. And I would love to get him and Micah on. If anybody doesn't know who Mark Reeder is, Mark Reeder was Factory Records guy out in Berlin. He went out there in the late 70s. He got Joy Division their gig at in West Berlin. Used to take bands across the border into East Berlin and do gigs in churches because that was the only place that you could play live music without the Stasi coming in. He had a Stasi file, a huge Stasi file, but he's produced and remixed for the likes of New Order, Depeche Mode, and big fan of 5.1 mixing as well. He loves all of that stuff. Great movie, if you've not seen it, called B-Movie, which is all about his life through 79 through 89, that 10-year period where effectively he broke a huge number of bands and introduced the world to trance music kind of through his MFS label. So yeah, absolutely good call. I will try and get Mark on the show, and there's some other people that through my contacts at Sound on Sound that I'm hoping that we might be able to get. So fingers crossed. Stay tuned, and we can only do more of this, and we only do it because of you guys in the chat room watching and all those people that aren't in the chat room watching. Why aren't you in the chat room? Get involved, crikey. Anyway, so we're going to say goodnight now because we've massively overrun, but I don't care.
That's what happens when you get me on anything.
I said to the wife, I said there's no need to rush tonight because
Ty's on.
Yeah, Ty's, and we've got no Winter Soldier to catch up and watch because that's finished now. So I said I might overrun a little bit. And
can I also just point out for everyone in the UK, I have missed the first 12 minutes of the new Alan Partridge thing. So I'm fairly gutted because I'm a huge Alan Partridge
iPlayer.
fan. So,
it's all on iPlayer.
Yeah, I know, but it's not live. It's not the same. I'm really pissed off. So
I'm sorry. I'm pissed off as well because I was going to watch it, but I can live with it. So listen, everyone in the chat room, thanks for all your comments. Thanks for your support as ever. Actually, do you know what I didn't do at the top of the show? I didn't tell you where you could pay us. If you want to help keep us on air.
To me. So I have to pay to be on.
Did you not know that?
Yeah, bugger.
Here's the invoice. So
hey guys, he's never going to pay. He's got too high of electricity bills.
Well, that's true. Yeah, so if you want to help keep us on the air, and we really would like your help to keep us on the air, because we do enjoy doing this, but we don't get paid for it, and we don't have any advertising or sponsors. So we do kind of rely on your donations, and we are super grateful for everyone that donates, either periodically or regularly. We know that some people have set up regular payments, and that's just incredible, because you kind of got a bit of confidence in us, which is nice. Cutley/PSN-donate. It's going across the bottom of the screen. The link is in the description below. So if you want to donate to us, that would be fantastic. Of course, you can also
just to say as well, just to let you know where the money is going. Like, if you guys have been here since the beginning, you remember the quality of the free software that we were using before, and the images and everything. We were like 4 pixels a piece. So. This has helped to make the show much better, and that's what we've used those contributions for.
A few people who I know thought it was a Lego animation at first.
Well, isn't it weird that the more money we've had paid in, our keyboard collections around us have grown? No, it's no, we honestly don't get that much. But no, we do. The whole service, costs money. That's the way it works. But we are able to come on air. Because of your donations, and we will stay on there for looking at the balance. We're going to be here for a while yet, so that's really very kind of you. And until we can find other means of generating income, your donations are supremely and very gratefully received. So thank you very much for that. You can also find us all over the social media network. So on Facebook. We're of course on YouTube, where I guess most of you are watching us now. Instagram, we have an account there, and Twitter. You can get in touch with us or contribute through those. If you need to speak to us off social media, there's the email info@prosynthnetwork.com. We will be back same time next week with Mr. Dave Spears from, I don't know where he's going to be, whether he's going to be at home, whether he's going to be in the studio. Either way, it will be fun. Please, if you have any questions, save them up and throw them into the chat room on the day. That'll be fantastic. But until then, you all stay very safe. Thank you again, Ty. It's always great to see and to hear from you.
Thank you.
I'll call you soon. And
and then everybody will hear about it.
Yeah.
After I was talking to Mark Doty, I was talking to Ty.
Exactly, yeah. That's another name. But yes, thank you for coming on. Thanks for taking the time. We'd love to have you back on at some point again soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's everything. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to sort of figure everything out here before we. Yeah, so same time, same place next week, 7 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. on the East Coast, 11 a.m. on the West Coast next Friday with Mr. Dave Spears. Until then, have a great weekend. If you're in the UK, have a really good long weekend, because we've got a bank holiday on Monday. Stay safe, get your jabs, wear your masks, do all that good stuff, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.